Hello, everyone, and welcome. Welcome again to a GM live stream with me, Derek, from the Knights of Last Call. How is everybody doing? Hopefully everything is coming through good. Everything is sounding correct. Everything is looking okay, looking fine. Seems good. Seems fine. Everything seems to be coming in. Hey, just want to say hi. It's been a while since we had one of these. We started up our Quest for the Frozen Flame AP, which is taking up our Tuesday slots. And then I was at Origins, and then I think I might have been... there was another reason why another Tuesday got missed. And long story short, we haven't had one of these in quite some time. So I'm particularly interested to hear what everybody thinks and get a sense for what everybody is up to. As everybody knows, if you're new or if you've been brought here before, this is basically just a Q&A stream where sometimes I get into rants, sometimes I get into rambles, sometimes a particular topic comes up and we kind of dive deep into it. But it's also an opportunity for you, the viewer, to ask me some questions. So feel free to drop those into the chat. I do try to take special attention to make sure I call out anybody who is gracious enough and generous enough to leave us a super chat or a Stream Elements tip. And I will make sure I try to get to those questions first and give those the most deep dive of our answers. We got quite a few folks in here, and I just want to say hello to everybody. We got Anthony, Ben, Bernardo, Henry. Henry is one of our adventurers. Welcome back, Henry. Joe Castle, Pillsbury Goat. Stephen Palmer is here as well. Also one of our legendary adventurers as well, with that blue badge showing his continued support. We've also got some of our big tippers in here today, and I do want to call quick special attention to that. There's a scrolling thing going on at the bottom there, and that's just sort of a list I'm going to keep up to date. But some of those folks on that list are some of the biggest financial contributors to this channel and to their success. And I'm not going to go through the entire list, but some of those folks have really done a lot of heavy lifting in keeping this show afloat, and really appreciate it. And we have expenses, so if that financial support wasn't there from our Patreon, from our tippers like you, then we probably would have closed the channel up, or certainly we would be doing much fewer live streams, and we would be not investing in the quality of the streams and trying to bring you as high quality of a thing as we possibly can. So just want to say thank you to everybody who's contributed in any sort of way, whether it's $3 or whether it's $300. I just want to say thanks a lot. I know that there are a lot of ways that you can enjoy this content for free, and the fact that you choose to offer up some of your hard-earned money I understand is in rare and short supply these days. It's really humbling, and it really means a lot. And it's part of the reason we are still here. Basically, the main reason we are still here. Certainly, thanks you to our Patreon, who is YouTube ad revenue is a joke, unless you're doing cringe reaction videos, or you're Mr. Beast or something, or something like that. You just can't make any money that way. So just want to say,
Steven tipped $50. Root, huh?
Steven, thank you. This is exactly what I was talking about, by the way. Thank you very much, Steven. Yes, Root. We've kind of talked about this a little bit, but Root is going to be our new game that we are going to be playing on Tuesdays. We want to use every other Tuesday to sort of dive into some of the more interesting and maybe indie games out there. And what we want to do with that actually is get back into the studio. We want to get live. We want to get in person. And that's, a huge deal for us. Now, part of that is, if you've seen our videos before, you know that the studio's a little bland. We could go into it. It's the GM Q&A. Why not? Steven tipped $50. He's asking about the Root game. Okay, so when we first... Okay, wow, how do I start this? So when I originally started this, we just did this up at my photography studio, and I had 2 long rectangular tables, which is great. It's what I've been playing on for 25 years of role-playing games. But I discovered that, we put a camera at the end of it. We shot it down the length of the table. Me at the end, so you'd look here, and then my players would be here and here, which is fine. But I really wanted to get player-facing cameras so that you could actually see the players, and it wouldn't be like this crazy weird angle, right? Like instead, it was more straight on. And so I started messing around in a 3D modeling program called SketchUp, and I ended up basically creating the Critical Role table. I didn't mean to at first, but I did end up creating the Critical Role table. And if you've never seen the Critical Role table, let me bring this up here really quick. I know this is the kind of stuff that I worry about or that I think about. So let me. Let me bring this up here. Okay, look at that. Boom. So this is the Critical Role table, right? It's this weirdly shaped, they call it the A-wing because it looks like an A-wing from Star Wars. And I assure you, quite accidentally, I actually basically ended up designing something very similar. It didn't have this deep cut that the Critical Role table has. And so I ended up basically designing this and building this, and this is what kind of went into our studio. But as we started to use it, if we take a look here, I quickly realized one of the big flaws with the Critical Role table, which is that basically you stick a camera at the one end, that looks at the GM, and then to either side of the GM, you have cameras which look at the opposing side of the camera. The problem with it is everybody is just so damn far away, right, from the middle of the table. It's impossible for the players. I mean, look at Travis over there on the right-hand side. There's just no way he's going to be able to reach the same play area that Matt Mercer is going to be able to reach, that, say, Sam Riegel here on the bottom left is going to be able to reach. And so while I appreciated that it was very useful, while I appreciated it was very useful for filming, I was not really that satisfied with its performance as like a gaming table, right? Like I wanted a table that my friends and I could play, actually play, D&D at. And actually here, let's take a look here. So you can see here, we're all over the place today here. So this is a shot from my original photography studio, and you can basically see here the A-wing design that we were working with. This is sort of what we originally used here. Now, we had cut out an area in the center because originally I was thinking of doing a TV insert into the table, and I was going to undermount a TV underneath it. And you could see that even as we built this thing, it's like, sorry, we had some craziness in the, oh gosh, we're being spammed. Okay, great. So even as we were sort of building this thing, I was like trying to take into account, how big a player's handbook is, a core rule book. In fact, one of my basic requirements for a table when I am designing it is I want a player to be able to have a basically 8.5 by 11 standard size, basically a 12-inch by 8-inch by rule book, open, double flap, and with a character sheet off to the side of it, and still have enough room. So I basically, I went ahead and we built this table, and this was the original table in all of its glory. And that, served us really well. But like I said, it had this problem, which is to say that it was difficult to get everybody in around it. And now the advantage of this was that I only needed three cameras. I need one camera for me, I needed one camera for the left side of the table, and I needed one camera from the right side of the table. But I wasn't happy. So this is where the second design of the table came in. So this was table 2.0. Now, table 2.0 was designed to be a pentagon. It's a regular-sided pentagon. And what this meant is that we, the players, were more centrally located around a table. It was easier for us all to reach essentially the center area. At the time, I was still experimenting with the recessed play area, the vault, which is called in most gaming tables. We could go on a whole thing about the vault and whether or not I think it's worth it. For RPGs, I just don't think it's actually worth it. And we were able to sort of get the sort of shots I wanted, but the problem was, in order to get the shots that I needed, I now needed 5 cameras. In fact, what ends up happening is you get 1 camera, okay, at each of the 5 corners of the pentagon, and it looks across the table directly at 1 player. So we end up with 5 cameras for 5 players, 4 players in the GM. And then I usually end up with an additional camera, which you can kind of see right there in the middle, which looks down at the battle map. And then lastly, we experimented. If you look in the top left and the top right, you can see the cameras that was actually Bob's camera and Matt's camera, respectively. But there are 2 little cameras on top of those, which were looking down at the dice trays, which were an attempt to sort of capture the excitement of the dice on the table. So again, these were all ongoing experiments to try to balance both playability. I wanted it to feel like an authentic table experience. I wanted it to be fun and engaging for myself and my friends. I wanted it to be a real table that we could all play at, but I also wanted it to be, something that we could use to film. And so again, that worked out, pretty well for us, but there were problems. And one of the biggest problems actually that we had, let me bring this up again here. Sorry. Is what to do with the background. A pentagon does not really fit well in a room, a standard size office suite like we have. And a standard size office room is going to, have 4 walls and 90-degree angles. And so behind each person, there was never really a good, what I would call, shot. You got a lot of corners and windows and odd angles. There was nothing we could really do to fix it. And if you watched a lot of our videos, what we ended up doing a lot of time is just sort of sticking a big black curtain behind someone like Nick or someone like Tim, because there was nothing we could do with that corner shot that wouldn't just look, ugh, right? And for example, Bob, we had a little bit more leeway, and you'll notice that Bob's videos, right, we ended up building a sort of, shelving system behind Bob, but it still wasn't perfect because the wall sort of was angulared away from Bob. Okay, so this is just me, Derek. I'm walking you through what it's like to be in my brain. So I'm just kind of reading the chat here really quick. Henry, so now I have to build a pentagonal gaming room. Sort of. Hey, Brass Axe. Good to see you. Glad to have you here. Yeah, so basically what we want to do instead now is build a set. What we are going to end up doing is we're going to end up building basically half a hexagon, or basically a pentagon, or I'm sorry, a trapezoid table, which if you've seen, what are they called? I can't remember the name. I know that Acquisitions Inc. uses a table very similar to this. Hold on a sec. I'm bringing it up. Don't get mad at me. We'll get there. I promise. Here we go. Okay. Here we go. Okay. Let me share my window here. Okay. So this company here, I actually saw them at Origins, but I'm not going to spend that much on a table. I'm just going to build my own. But they basically have this table that they build for streamers. Now, there's a lot of features about this that I don't really particularly like. But one of the things that this streaming table will enable us to do is use 3 cameras again. But one of the advantages about this is that basically the 3 cameras can be set up on the left side of the table in front, looking at the right side of the table, right in the middle, looking at the GM, and then on the far right side of the table, looking over at the left side of the table. It's a good in-between balance. And you can see here, I don't remember the name of this group, but they use it, and as does Acquisitions Inc., right? So obviously, we dream, but what I can basically do is build a 3-wall studio and put 1 fake wall behind me, 1 fake wall behind the left side of the table, 1 fake wall behind the right side of the table, 3 cameras, and we can shoot everybody. We can have a nice visual look to our stream, but it's still a functional table that we can all sort of enjoy and play. And, that is definitely what we are looking to do. And the other thing that we are looking to do is if you take a whole look up on top here of this screen, now we're not going to go this extreme, but the other thing that I discovered, let me get rid of this here so we can talk. The other thing I discovered while building these tables is dynamic microphones like these are very good. They eliminate a lot of the ambient room noise. They allow the players to be up close and personal and really sound great for an affordable price, honestly, which was a big deal for me back when the channel was making 0 money. But we're making some more money now, which is great. And I'm working. And the fact of the matter is these things get a little annoying when you're playing a game with your friends, especially if you're playing any sort of game with miniatures or moving things around, but even just having this in front of you while you're looking down to look at your character sheet or to look at a rule book. Dynamic mics are kind of designed to reject that sound. So when someone starts talking down, that sound can sort of boil off. And it happens a lot during our gameplay. Not to mention, like I said, just this big, huge thing right in front of your face. And if you watched any of our Rise of the Rune Lord stuff, you know that we were always taking it off and moving it away and stuff like that. So it was a real problem. And so one of the things that I want to do is similar to this photo here. I want to, I want to invest in some ceiling-mounted microphones, shotgun microphones, and try to pick up the players with microphones, which will be out of the sight of the cameras, but able to still capture a really good, clean audio sound. So, I didn't even see here. Sorry again. Normally I forgot to do it. Maybe I'll actually do it so that I can deal with it. Actually, let me do it right now. I was like, I didn't turn on my camera or my monitor. Normally I have a screen right here. See, this is a monitor. And normally I have a screen here, which is in my teleprompter so that I can look at the camera and read the chat at the same time. I know it freaks people out sometimes. But it's easy that way. I can keep an eye on everything and still feel like I'm not missing anything, but I can still talk to the camera. Self-confessed cynic is in the house. Great to see you, Vin. Haven't really been seeing you. Should be working, but I'm glad you're here. Oh God, how many shotgun mics is Derek buying? Hopefully, I'm going to try 3, but we may have to go to 5. That's the answer. Luckily, Ben found what I consider to be a perfect price range, perfect price point option, and I'm excited to at least get one to try it out here at home in my office and mount it basically right here out of sight and see how well that works and how do I like the tone and the sound before we end up sort of investing in the rest of it. Listen, actually, we can, we'll probably end up with 5. Okay. Anyways, long story short, I really want to create a very fun atmosphere for our Root game. Bob and I, Bob's an architect. I'm a woodworker. This is fun for us as well. It's a great way for me to take some of these awesome donations that everybody is putting into the channel and put it back into the channel in a fun way. And I'm not a Hollywood set designer, but we have a little bit of talent, and I think we can do a lot better than just a plain black drop cloth behind Tim like we've used for so many months. And I want to do as much as we can with the limited budget that we have. Are we going to are we going to look like Critical Role? Are we going to have custom projector images and stuff? No, of course not. But I think we can step it up a little bit. And, quite honestly, I'm also really excited about starting a Root game. I'm really excited about playing, something that isn't D20. This channel, we've only had an opportunity to play D20, whether it was Rise of the Rune Lords and now Quest for the Frozen Flame. We're gonna, we could keep playing our Pathfinder 2 game, but between that and the fact that the last, I don't know, 2 years, I was running another Pathfinder 2 game that wasn't on the channel that you guys didn't see. So I was running that game, Abomination Vaults. I had played in a 5e campaign at the very beginning of the channel, offline. I was a player. The last 8 months, I've been a player, or 6 months, I've been a player in another Pathfinder 2 campaign. I have just been playing nothing but nonstop Pathfinder 2 and maybe a little bit of 5th edition. And quite frankly, that which is great for me because at the time, this channel was all about Pathfinder 2. I really wanted to learn the system so that I could be as, in depth with it as I possibly
Jason
could.
B tipped $10. Hello, fellow toxic gamers. Hope everyone is feeling bad about being alive tonight and for offending everyone by being honest. Lol, you people, honesty in 2022, WTF is wrong with you? Ha 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 ha. Keep it sleazy, y'all.
Jason B is in the house, dropping nuggets of wisdom. Thank you, Jason B. Appreciate it. Look, you're right there. You're on the list. You're on the scrolling list. Thank you very much for that chat tip. I appreciate it so much, Jason B, an ongoing supporter of the show. He respects what we've brought for the Pathfinder 2 game. But yeah, so basically, look, I love other games and haven't had a chance to play them because I've been so focused on Pathfinder 2. It grabbed my attention. But if you've hung out with me before, you know that I love playing a lot of different games and I'm interested in a lot of different mechanics. And I've stayed for a very long time on Pathfinder 2. So I'm very excited to continue to do our Pathfinder 2 Quest for the Frozen Flame games. But I'll be honest with you, I'm excited that it's only every other week. I'm excited that in our Friday game, Damien, what Derek is saying, he's tired of D20 games. Yeah, a little bit. I mean, there's definitely a part of it. Certainly, like the very combat heavy, grid and mini focused Pathfinder 2 game. Playing Quest for the Frozen Flame has been a really nice in between. There's a lot of FBT in that game. There's, it's not your traditional adventure path. It only goes to level 10. So we're using automatic bonus progression, and the characters have these really, really interesting backgrounds that are mechanically affecting the story or the characters because of the fact that they are all Kelid humans living in the realm of the Mammothors. So that has made it a lot more interesting. But, truth be saying, like I need to get back to some of my, some of the games that really, interest me and energize me. Long story short. So that is why I'm so excited about Root. I'm excited about other games, right? Some of the idea of this other game concept is that once we build this studio, maybe there's another way that we can get in there. Maybe there's a way that we can figure out a way to run more games, even on the Patreon. And we've been talking about that in the Hero channel, about ways that Derek, can start to maybe play some games with some of the members of the community, while at the same time acknowledging the generosity and the financial contributions that people have made, right? I'd love to be able to play a game with everybody, but that's just not going to be possible. But we're sort of in a transitional state now where I feel like things are pretty good with me, with the channel. Aaron and Bob have really been stepping up and helping run a lot of the day-to-day stuff, a lot of the background stuff, a lot of the Northern Reaches stuff. And so that has freed me up. And, plus Quest for the Frozen Flame is launched. Aside from the debacle with ordering the art, which we had to get a cancel and get a refund, everything has been pretty smoothly there. And so, yeah. Basically I have some free time and I'm going to, kind of look into it. So, anyways, yes, I'm basically saying I'm I'm very excited. I don't want to say I'm tired of D20. I'll always play D20. It's what I've been playing since I was a kid, essentially. But I am eager to try, try some new games and get back to some old favorites for sure. Vin, by the way, I saw that there were some questions up ahead or up north, and again, I'll try to get to them as best as I can. If you really want to make sure I get to something, please feel free to super chat or tip. I'm not trying to hustle you, but it's the easiest way for me to. Those things actually get called out and stored there. My gaming crew tried Dungeon World while I was away. A lot of interesting thoughts. In short, it only took 2 sessions before it started getting house ruled quite a lot. Yeah. And I think that's fine. I mean, I think that the principles of Dungeon World and the agenda of Dungeon World lead themselves to house ruling. I mean, in fact, the Powered by the Apocalypse system, if you read Monster Hearts, Dungeon World, Root, Thirsty Sword Lesbians, there's so many of them. Monster of the Week, Our Last Best Hope. Like, there's so many of these games. Each one sort of has a unique spin or variation on the rules. Some of them add more mechanical complexity in other areas. Some of them add entirely new subsystems to support the kind of genre emulation that they're trying to achieve and the sort of gaming experience that it is trying to push. So I think that's great. So I don't think that's a problem, personally. I mean, to be honest with you, I probably would house rule Pathfinder 2 more. I just, it's like a house of cards. Beautiful, intricate, amazingly stable, given what it's built out of. But I don't want to go fucking with that. The whole thing might collapse, and I won't even understand how or why. Ironsworn, says Ben. So let me scroll back up here to the top. Let me go real quick to London. London is a patron and love to answer his question here. I see that's kind of scrolling off the thing here, so I'll read it. What is it about the Darklands or analogs of them? I'm assuming like the Underdark is what most people would think of. Darklands is a Pathfinder Galarian thing, but most people would call it the Underdark. What is it about the Darklands or analogs of them that players and GMs find interesting? Underground adventure does not seem interesting to me. Am I missing a cultural or media touch point? I would say, going down into deep, dark, scary caves has sort of been, that's where the monsters live. I mean, I think that's a cultural touch point that goes back to probably prehistoric primitive man. And going into caves is sort of the natural version of going into a dungeon, and the Darklands or the Underdark is sort of the biggest, baddest, cavern cave system of them all, right? It is the dark, unexplored, creepy, crawly areas that man was not meant to know. And so, I think that basically is what it comes down to. I think it comes down to the fact that people really don't want to, people don't want that sort of stuff in their game. And that's what it really comes down to, is they just don't, they do want that in their game. I'm sorry, I was distracted there. But yeah, also, I think there was always sort of an allure that the Underdark was where no man had ever tread, and that is where the best treasure was kept. It's where the ancient wonders of a forgotten age lay unclaimed and undespoiled since the early days of the world. But consummate to that, that is where the darkest and most horrifying horrors waited for players. And so there was definitely like kind of a thrill, but also a danger there, which when you're, in real life, you kind of balance that. But in a role-playing game where, your character is a stolen car, and you could take them into these super dangerous situations and not suffer for it, then that's everything that you would want in one. I mean, if underground exploration isn't your thing, I should also note that too, most dungeons or caves, the idea is you're underground, and that's scary. But it's typically something that's fairly contained, right? It's something that would fit, I don't know, inside of a football stadium in modern day sense. But the idea of doing long distance overland sort of travel, but underground, was like a whole new level of challenging your characters. And I think that was also what was really appealing. This idea of surviving in what is, the most inhospitable region or environment that the game world had to offer. All right, Joe said, question, not sure if you talked about this before, but what are your thoughts on Nonat1's recent video calling Pathfinder community toxic? Yeah, we talked about this a little bit on my Discord. Long story short, I think it's a little silly because to me, Pathfinder and 5th edition D&D are like kind of the same game. I know, yeah, sure. One game has like 5 feats and the other game has 40 or whatever. But like, they're 6 stats, strength, deck. You roll D20, you got to roll high. You have armor class, you have hit points. You have attacks. They have great swords. You have great swords. You have armor class. You have armor class. To me, it's so funny. To me, it shows a lack of perspective. And that's fine. I think that people, conflating the difference. Let me put it this way. The original edition wars, which people were referencing, between 3rd edition and 4th edition D&D. Now, these were both D&D, but in my personal opinion, 4th edition D&D and 3rd edition D&D were more different, were further apart, had wildly different gaming goals and objectives and mechanics and all this other stuff than 5th edition and Pathfinder 2 is. I think Pathfinder 2 and 5th edition are different, but I think they're actually closer together in theme and style and genre and the way that the game plays out than 4th edition and 3rd edition D&D. So to me, like when someone says, I don't like 5th edition, and someone says, you should play Pathfinder 2, I'm kind of like, maybe you should just not play something with a D20 base. Maybe, I'm not going to tell someone who's playing 5th edition that they should play something else. Maybe once I would have, but we all grow, we all learn. I've come to the realization that, it's like Magic the Gathering. I know I talk about Magic the Gathering a lot here. Like, I want to be mad at all the people who don't want to play competitive Magic. They just want to play casual Commander with their friends, EDH. But look, that's how they play the game, and that's how they enjoy it. And as long as they are playing the game with the rules that, the cards and they're functioning as Magic the Gathering cards, like, just because it's not my cup of tea. I will say, though, that I'm in the social spotlight. I have a whopping 5,000 subs, right? Which is nothing. We make, $1,500 to $2,000 a month, which is nice. I mean, that's great. We have our fees and expenses and all that other stuff. It also depends on how well the tips are going. During the Wheel of Pain days, we made a lot more. Wink, wink. But I am making money, essentially, from the community by talking about my thoughts and feelings about role-playing games. If I am going to do that, if I'm going to profit from that, then when someone comes at me and says, hey, I think your ideas are toxic, or I think that you're completely wrong about your spell rating, I think that you're overly harsh because you're, giving everything an F or whatever. I thought your review of that book was totally unwarranted. Monsters of Myth is a great book. Like, I don't have to necessarily agree and be, bend over and flip flop. I can still say, well, I respectfully disagree. I think the book is bad, but I can't be mad that people think that my ideas are stupid. Like, I put myself out there. If I don't want that kind of engagement, I shouldn't be putting myself into social media. I shouldn't be making videos of myself on the internet, and I shouldn't definitely be making money doing so. I think that's just kind of the cost of doing business. And so, yeah. I think that, if somebody somewhere So basically, what am I saying? Well, if no one is complaining about 5th edition, let's talk about dick moves. If someone's, whether it's Ginny D on Twitter or whether it's some kid at your local game shop, if there is somebody out there who is,
Anonymous tipped $25.
Hey, thanks to you, Anonymous, for the $25 tip. I don't know who you are, but I really appreciate it. Thank you very, very much. That's awesome. Thank you. But if you're at your local game store or you're Ginny D on Twitter, and I am sitting there talking about how much I love my 5th edition game, I'm really having a lot of fun with my friends, and we're really enjoying the adventure that I'm running, whether it's, Strixhaven, Curriculum of Chaos, or it's some dungeon that I, have drawn up, or some adventure that I'm running because I read Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master. And I come in and I slide in with, I don't know, Pathfinder 2, or I love just grabbing whatever random book is behind me. D20 Modern. Hey, I hear you said that you really like your 5th edition game and you're really enjoying your playing Storm King's Thunder. But have you thought about picking up a 20-year-old OGL version of D20 where you could play with guns and space fighters instead? I think you'll have more fun. That's a dick move. That's just a dick move. They weren't asking for my opinion. They weren't asking for my advice. At no point should someone be trying to sell this person on a different game. Full stop. That's a dick move. On the other hand, if someone is up at the game store or on Twitter and they are complaining about X and Y and Z in their 5th edition game or their Pathfinder 2 game, and if someone in a community, especially again, in a large social media based community, suggests their favorite game, yeah, I don't know. I think that's kind of par for the course. Now, that being said, I personally think it's very funny when someone has complaints or problems with 5th edition and the response is, you should be playing Pathfinder 2. Well, if you have problems with 5th edition, you're probably going to have the same problems with Pathfinder 2. Unless like your specific request is like, I love 5th edition so much, but it's so annoying when I get a really high roll, but I didn't roll a nat 20. Like I really think like I should be able to critically hit or get some sort of extra bonus for rolling so well and having such a high bonus. At that point, someone should suggest Pathfinder 2. But a lot of times when people are complaining about Pathfinder 2, I'm kind of like, I think you just need to try something, that's not D20. And I think suggesting Pathfinder 2 is actually kind of silly. I think it represents the person suggesting it. Probably they themselves don't know very many games and they're kind of maybe offering bad advice. It's like if somebody orders a burger and they don't like the burger and you're like, oh, well, you should try a burger with a different type of cheese. And you're like, maybe they should just try a salad. Maybe what you don't want is something that is burger-like. And so, I think that honestly kind of everybody there was kind of idiotic, specifically to No Nat. I mean, the guy's full-time. He's got to make videos and views, and I haven't, I check out his page every once in a while, and that video did very well for him. So good on you. All right. Sorry. We're getting caught up. See, I told you, if you really want to get to me, you gotta tip because there's too many questions here. All right, Ben. I will answer any of Ben's questions. Robin Laws, the great game designer, said that when you design a game for a big franchise, you're better off not being very innovative because when you lose that franchise, the design goes extinct, aka face rip. Thoughts? By the way, face rip is the old Marvel superheroes gaming system, and it was named for the attributes that you had in that game, which I think were like fighting, agility, strength, endurance, resolve, intellect, perception, something like that. I could be a little bit wrong, but that is an interesting question. And I actually kind of agree with it. Although I don't know that that's true that you're going to lose the design, because I have seen many good game systems. Like, for example, I know you don't like it, Ben, but the Fantasy Flight game system, which uses all the bunch of different colored dice, which we now call Genesis, originally came out as Warhammer 3rd Edition. Fantasy Flight Games got the license to publish Warhammer 3rd Edition, or Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, which up until that point had been a D100 based system. Well, it's Fantasy Flight Games. They made board games, and so they tried to turn a role-playing game into a board game. And they did. I like the game. It's actually like right there. I can actually see it. But most people did not. They hated it. And so Fantasy Flight Games wheeled that back. I think they still have the license, but they basically produced Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 4th Edition, which kind of went back to the basics of the D100 system. But they designed this awesome system, Genesis, and they rolled it out for new and exciting IPs. Green Ronin did this as well when they got the license to produce a Song of Ice and Fire role-playing game, your sort of Game of Thrones role-playing game, and design it they did. I think it was called a Song of Ice and Fire RPG. I don't know how great that game system worked, or that game worked, but after they lost the IP, they continued to produce that role-playing game as the Chronicle system. God, who did the Dragon Age RPG? The original publishers, it was also Green Ronin. Okay, so the original Green Ronin produced the Dragon Age, which was a popular video game, I don't know, about 10 or 12 years ago, and they produced a game for Dragon Age. It basically was kind of a D20 system, uses this extra D6 called a stunt die. Well, they lost that license too, and then they just generically published it as the Age system, AGE, which they, I think, backronymed into being called the Adventure Game Engine system. So I do think that when you design a game system, you're probably going to lose the franchise, and you're probably going to be worse off for it. But I think that in many cases, you can still design a system, and if it's solid enough, you can just sort of say, like, I think a lot of times people design a system, they have a really cool idea for it, but maybe in the back of their mind, they go, I have this amazing game engine, but if I publish this generically as just the Age, the Adventure Game Engine system, or the Chronicle system, no one is ever going to pick it up. You, as the game designer, are waiting to get some sort of IP that you can attach your kick-ass, your baby maybe, your kick-ass game system to, so that people will actually pay attention to it and actually pick it up. Because are they going to pick up the Chronicle system? No. But are they going to pick up the Song of Ice and Fire role-playing game powered by the Chronicle system? Yes. And that at least will get your game engine into the hands of people, and hopefully, you'll have more success with it. And then even if that IP dies, then if people were fans of your game system, or you get enough clout from it, maybe an NE or something, for your game, then when you come out with sort of the generic serial numbers filed off version of it, then you can continue to develop that game system independent of the intellectual property that originally launched it. So I guess long story short, I kind of disagree maybe with Robin Laws a little bit in that respect. All right. All right. I'm just kind of we're catching back up. People were talking about the tables. I know I've seen Brune's table, and it is a thing of beauty. And I think that's an important thing too to understand. Like, there are tables built for pleasure. There are tables built for business. A streaming table has so many other concerns going on for it, and unfortunately, you do usually have to make some concessions to how good it is in terms of the player experience, or certainly, the design aesthetic and what it's made out of and how beautiful it is. And so for certainly all of that. Let's see here. Bernardo said he's still cooking the idea of a hybrid of PF2E for combat and Fate for exploration and role playing. Again, I will only make one comment there, Bernardo, is you probably don't need any system for role-playing. But if you mean role-playing in like a mechanical sense, that is very interesting. And I think there is something very compelling about that, which we could talk about. I've talked about it on this show before, about the Strike RPG, which very clearly separates out the tactical miniatures combat portion of their game from the rest of their game system, which is more narrative based. Okay. What the fuck salads? Said self-confessed cynic. Yeah, listen. Sometimes people want a salad. Vin, I don't know if you're still listening here at work, but we were a couple of my friends and I who are all recently or newly-ish single, and we're kind of preparing to close out our 30s and start to move into our 40s. So we've been talking about trying to do maybe like a big trip with a couple of us, and the New Zealand Australia area did get brought up as a potential location. So who knows? Maybe we'll be down in the Sydney area here in the next year or so. Let's see here. Who would you rather, Monica or Rachel? Rachel. I was always a big Rachel fan. I liked Monica, but she was neurotic, and Rachel had her own issues as well. But I never thought Phoebe got enough credit. I really liked Phoebe. I liked that they kept her pretty much the same throughout the whole show. Monica got a lot more boring when she ended up dating Chandler. Oh, Joe says Monica. No way. Quark asks, when will you be putting out the spell list document? Quark, that's a great question. I will probably work on that. I'll probably actually work on that tonight, maybe. I have a couple things that I've been trying to finish up, and that seems like a nice, easy, low brain activity. I was at work all day today. Normally I don't go into the office, but I had to go into the office today. And yeah. So, a Song of Ice and Fire RPG system was really, really interesting. I'm trying to remember who designed it. Was it Rob Schwalb? Yeah, I think Rob Schwalb designed it. And Rob Schwalb has designed some incredible games. If you really want to see what I think is one of my favorite variations of the 5th edition game engine, is to check out Shadow of the Demon Lord. It's a little bit like death metal, end of the world, and I don't necessarily love that. But the way that he takes on advantage and disadvantage through boons and banes, he has this sort of class job system that sort of seems reminiscent of Paragon Paths and Epic Destinies from 4th edition. And the big winner about this is it only goes to fucking level 10. I kind of went on a rant on this the other day, but I was like, why do we still go to level 20? Is anybody actually happy going to level 20? Does anybody want, like, Gary Gygax picked 20. If Gary Gygax had picked 500, would we all still be playing to level 500 50 years later, 48 years later? I'm going to be playing as a 20th level character to wrap up a campaign on Friday. And I got to tell you, I don't get why we have to, I don't know why we have to have 20 levels. I'm off the 20 levels. That's my hot take. Let's see. Yes. Talking about the Song of Ice and Fire game, but yes, it had some mechanics, which I always really, really like, which is the idea that, like a diplomacy check that could be made against your character. Song of Ice and Fire was very clearly leaning into the idea that, kind of like a Legend of the Five Rings game, right? That the social intrigue could be as dangerous as any war. Not like this is a big deal, but for spoiler alerts, but it's like more characters died. All right, ignore the last season. More characters died in Game of Thrones due to political intrigue and back dealings and backstabbings than they did from like straight out actual combat. And I think that the idea that the city is a dangerous place, that the courtroom is as dangerous or maybe even more dangerous than any battlefield. I think that is very important and evocative, but this is so important though. Do I want that in my big action hero fantasy power fantasy game? No. Do I want that in my dirt under my fingernails, crawling through muck, survival horror D&D game? No, I don't. But if I'm playing a game that's literally called the Game of Thrones, which is named after the social power climbing game that these all people, then yeah, it should have really interesting social mechanics that have really large, interesting game effects that take up a better portion of the time. Again, games can't do everything. Everyone who tells you that they can are lying to you. Everybody who works at Paizo, everybody who works at Wizards of the Coast, they're lying to you. Their game engines don't do everything, nor should they, and I don't expect them to. I'm not mad at them for doing it. To be clear, they don't even necessarily market it like that. Everybody else markets it like that for them. Yeah. Let's see here. Most games Damien likes are level-less. I could get behind that as well. I think that was on stream, but it might have been in the Discord. I was talking. I was like, look, I've leveled up a lot. I get it. For new players, people who've never played the game before, people who want that zero to hero fantasy, this idea that at the start of my quest, I was a nobody. And now look at me. I can slay gods with the swat of my hand. I get it. That is a very powerful thing for people, but it's not for everybody.
$25. Got a jet to run Ken for the community game. See you all later.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. And have fun with the community game. Ben is just killing it and crushing it. And boy, pillar of this community. Love having him around. And, he could be a little abrasive sometimes. I will admit that. But he's got a lot of really great ideas. And he really does care about role-playing games. And God help us, he's played them all. So it's fantastic. So take care. Steven leaving because he's probably going to play instead games. So Steven, thank you for the tip. Thank you for the adventurous subscription. Love it. Love it. Mutants Masterminds, fantastic system. I don't know if you can see it here. Where's it all? Actually don't know where all my Mutants Mastermind stuff is. It's back here somewhere. Oh, it's over here on the far left. You can't see it. That cubicle there is all Mutants and Mastermind stuff. Really like first edition Mutants and Masterminds, which is all still D20 OGL. Really love second edition Mutants and Masterminds. Third edition Mutants and Masterminds, not so much. It's still good, but they made a couple of key critical changes to it, which I don't love. So my general take on it is second edition Mutants and Masterminds. It's beautiful. It's perfect. I love it. So I do love Mutants Mastermind. We could go into a whole thing. We had this whole thing with the Lake Erie League, this entire fantasy pretend world with that universe that we built. We had like crazy sessions and episodes. It's really just a whole huge thing. Let me take a look here. Let me see if I have something here. We used to make, I'm trying to see if I could find that. We used to make like fake newspapers for the events at that time. No, Mutants Masterminds is a great system that definitely knows what it wants to do. So, it's fantastic. Let's see here. You know what? You say that, but I'll be honest with you, self-confessed cynic. There are times when I legitimately want a chicken Caesar salad. Now, is that like a full salad in the traditional sense? No, but I really like Caesar dressing. I really like Parmesan cheese. I really like croutons. I really like crispy romaine lettuce, and I do love me some nice grilled chicken breast. So sometimes that is exactly what I want. Come to New Zealand. There's no deadly spiders or snakes or crocodiles here, says Shadram. I got to be honest with you, Shadram. New Zealand is definitely top of the list, maybe for me, because just for no other reason than I'd love to just walk that vista that, I know it sounds lame, but it's kind of Lord of the Rings tourism. To me, New Zealand is Middle Earth on Earth. I think it's fantastic. I've heard really good things about the food, the beef, the sheep, I guess the mutton. I think it'd be an incredible experience. So I am really looking forward to if we do go down south to the Southern Hemisphere. I definitely hope that New Zealand is part of it. So, have you guys played with the Savage Worlds game engine? Asked Mark Campbell. Well, yes, we have. I've never run a full dedicated campaign with it, Mark. I've only ever played it at conventions as sort of one-offs. It's interesting. It's not my favorite. I'm trying to figure out what I think it does do well. I don't know. It's a crunchy game. I mean, there's no doubt about that. But there's something about it that's a little bit too generic, and super generic games can sometimes miss me a little bit. Like, I like Fate, but Fate is a little too generic at times. I think sometimes mechanics help me engage with the game better. When a game knows what it wants to be about, it can build mechanics and systems to go directly after that. And I really appreciate this beautiful moment. And it's like Magic the Gathering does this as well. Like, sometimes there are cards which encapsulate a fictional or narrative idea mechanically in such a compelling way that I just kind of like, it's like a thing of beauty to me. It's like a work of art. So I really love elegant systems that create genre emulation and lead you towards very interesting decisions purposefully, with intent. And sometimes with games like systems like Fate or with Savage Worlds, they're so generic, I think you sometimes can miss some of those elements. By the way, D&D, despite being a fantasy role-playing game, and Pathfinder as well, kind of fall into that same category. Just that they're not even generic in the sense that, I mean, I guess D20 is in the sense that, as I was showing before, you could have D20 modern with space and, you know, modern day military or X-Files type stuff. But yeah, I really like game engines that are like, that have a mission, a goal, and they're not afraid to pursue it with mechanics. So, self-confessed to Nick says I like 20 levels, but I'm 100% all right with 100. Oh my God. Kieran, KC, nothing's going on. We're just kind of talking about random stuff. Bernardo asks, or Bernardo says, I will never understand why TTRPGs players want their system to do everything, like a duck. It should be amazing at one thing and not terrible at all. Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with that. A lot of generic game systems have sort of fallen flat to me and haven't delivered as much. So I definitely could agree with that. Let's see. Damien says he's read almost every Super RPGs ever printed, and Mutants and Masterminds is his second favorite. Ooh, second favorite. I think Sentinels is his first one. I think he was trying to get me to read that. Joe Castle does have a question, though. If D&D, Pathfinder, and the 20-level game suddenly became 10 levels, how would you handle spells and monsters? Would players level really slow? That's a great question. Well, for starters, level 1 spells are now level 1. Level 2 spells are level 2. Level 3 spells are level 3. Level 7 spells are level 7. Level 10 spells are level 10. Boom. Okay, so spells are fixed. And also it makes sense. Hey, what level spells do I get at level 6? You get level 6 spells at level 6. Oh, okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So that already is easy. And then, man, the bots are really in here aggressively today, huh? Look at that. They're trying to get us there. Report that this person is doing this. And yeah, all right. Thank you, Damien. Okay, sorry. So already, for starters, all you do is you get rid of the spells you get rid of. For monsters, okay, well, there's a little bit of work there, but just level 10 becomes your old level 20. So you kind of get rid of all the chaff in between. Like something that's big and scary, you just make a level 10 monster. That's the end of it. You don't have to really worry about anything else. Secondly, how would you handle... Oh, Bob got his renewal of being an adventurer. Welcome, Bob. And by the way, if you're interested in what that is, and you're interested in why some people are strong... I am strong. Strong, strong. 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 That is because they have become an adventurer of Night's Call. You see, we have a Patreon, and you should definitely join it. The link is below. Our Patreon is the hub. It is the heart of this community. It is where more game conversations are occurring on a per minute basis than pretty much any role-playing game, Patreon, Discord, or any Discord really that anybody else that has joined our community has ever been a part of. We get really deep into the weeds. If you want to learn about other game systems, this is a fantastic place to be. I'm not going to say it's the best, but it has got to be one of the best. We have such a wide variety of people. There's incredible community game. We, the Knights of Last Call, have invested in a ton of Foundry servers and Foundry game engines and Foundry game licenses and Forge licenses so that you could play community games whenever, however you want. That is available to everybody. If you want to play in a lot of Pathfinder 2 games, then you could join our Northern Reaches game, which requires being a little bit higher tier, but you'll basically be able to play Pathfinder 2 once, twice, maybe 3 times a week, depending on who is available and when and where. It's growing all the time. So it's awesome. But if you want to have cool emojis and emotes inside of our live chats and in YouTube, you got to become an adventurer. It's a fun way to show your support and get some access to some pretty cool and fun emojis. So, tip, like, subscribe, join the Patreon. If you really feel like throwing some money away, join the YouTube channel. And then, would players level really slow? Well, what does that really mean, Joe? I mean, even in a game like Pathfinder 2 or D&D 5th edition, I mean, the players level technically at whatever pace feels right to you. I mean, if your group is getting 100 to 200 XP per session, then it's going to take them 5 sessions to level up. It's going to take them 100 sessions to get to level 20. But if your party members are getting 500 experience points per session in your Pathfinder 2 game, well, then it's going to take you 2 sessions to level, and it's only going to take you 40 to get to level 20. That kind of has always been a determinant factor anyways of the GM. So that's really about finding a sweet spot that works for you and what works for your players. It also kind of ties into the genre that you're playing. If you're looking for that sort of unrealistic action hero advancement, then I'd say level up really quickly, because it won't feel unnatural that a month ago your character could barely fight an orc, and now today they're fighting 2 ancient red dragons. But if that feels a little weird or wonky to you, then I would probably suggest slowing it down to the point where maybe it takes many, many months or even years in the game time for your character to gain those levels. Shadram asks, my homebrew Pathfinder 2 game is in the mid-teens now. My condolences. And I struggle to come up with scenarios that seem relevant to their power level. Any thoughts on high-level scenarios and what they should feel like? Well, Shadram, I would say that high-level D&D or high-level Pathfinder is where the gloves can come off. These are characters who are capable of teleporting and moving through the planes. Give them some high-level world-ending stuff. The stakes should be really high, and you don't even necessarily always have to have a solution in mind. These are high-level characters. They've got deep pockets. They can figure something out. They can pull a spell out of their butt. They can go and do things that no one else could possibly do. These are characters you need to be thinking like superhero level. Take inspiration from comic book movies. Like an invasion from another plane. The horde of dragons, a dragon army awakens from an ancient slumbering volcano. A portal to the abyss opens up. A deity is assassinated and they need to go hunt its murderer through the plains. Like, high-level D&D should be kind of crazy over the top. The spells support that. The abilities support that. The feats support that. You get, in Pathfinder 2, you get things like cloud jump and all these, scare to death, which they nerfed. But, like, your characters are basically superhero. They're comic book characters. So, take the gloves off. Let's just get whatever crazy thing you think seems to make sense, then go for that, Self-confessed cynic with the super chat. Party's level 12 just hit session 94. Oh, that's horrible, buddy. That's horrible. Does time work differently in Australia? Do you all not have normal progression of time? Does 94 sessions in Australian time equate to like, I don't know, 30 sessions in our time? That's crazy. We could talk about that. Like, okay, let me rephrase that. That's crazy to me. If Self-Confessed Cynic and his group really enjoy playing and leveling and gaining advancement that slowly, A+ to them. I think that's a little too slow. I think I'd get a little bored there. So, going back to what I was saying before, by the way, so Chicken Caesar is the king of salads because it's clearly just pretending to be a salad. All right, I will agree to that. We started playing with Savage Rifts. It's so much better than vanilla Rifts. My Palladium expertise is not that great, and so I definitely don't know Rifts that well. And I'm assuming Savage Rifts is just a take on Rifts with the Savage World engine. Joe says, please stream a Mutants and Masterminds campaign after Root. Superhero games would be a lot of fun, actually, to do. Mutants and Masterminds 2nd edition, I have sort of an interesting relationship with now because it is ultimately a D20 based game. So it's fairly mechanical, right? Like you have power points that you use to build powers. And, my modern day sense abilities kind of say, this all seems a little bit kludgy. I don't necessarily care that if you're, it's a comic book, right? How do things work in a comic book? They work at the speed of plot anyways. And when you play Mutants and Masterminds, the game is very explicit about this. The Game Master has the ability to award hero points to players to basically say, I'm cheating, that doesn't work. Or that's great, that's totally awesome. Yeah, but the bad guy totally gets away. I don't know, he drops paralyzed gas or something. There's a bus with children, and he pushes it over the edge of the highway. You have to save it, and then he gets away. Here's a hero point. Yeah, listen, this is what happens in the comic book. You did a good job, but I'm rewarding you by cheating by giving you a hero point, okay? Well, if I'm going to be playing a game system where we're kind of flibbity-jibbity the rules anyways in order to sort of keep up genre emulation by awarding hero points to let the game progress the way that it needs to get, then why am I going super deep into the tank on, how many points I've put into my optic blast power? Point is, I don't think we need to. That being said, I do love Mutants and Masterminds. I probably would 100% play it, but Damien says this is exactly why I switched to Sentinels, which is probably exactly why the next time I am thinking about superheroes, I need to check out Sentinels. It definitely sounds interesting, and the ideas behind what they were trying to achieve certainly seemed in line with the way that I feel about the game, which is great. Let's see here. Satir says, hi, listening while doing yard work. Keep rocking. Hey, Satir. It's like 1,000,000 degrees everywhere in the United States, so hope you're staying hydrated. Let's see here. Joe, who knows? The spammers, the Russian bots will get us one way or the other. Well, there goes the Russian bots. In basic D&D, classes of level different speeds, and some classes only go to 8. That is true. And as William Brandis points out, this is actually part of the reason casters were not so broken when compared to marshals in original D&D, because the martial characters tended to level much faster than the wizard character. And then the cleric character, who, arguably was kind of a heal bot and healed him, didn't have the cool snazzy spells like Fireball and Lightning Bolt. They actually leveled even faster as sort of a reward for being, I guess, such a unfun class. Let's see here. Saw says they're talking about Vin's campaign, self-confessed in his campaign. 350 hours of playing at level 12 equals slow progression scale, and a smiley face. So see, there you go. You keep your players happy and everything's going to be good. I mean, again, I've had more campaigns, I think, ruined by leveling too quickly than leveling too slowly. Leveling slowly gives the campaign time to breathe, and I think it's very useful when you are playing a game where, if you're playing big damn hero, action hero, die hard, Marvel comic superhero type campaign, you know, whatever, doesn't matter. Level up all you want. But if you're playing a campaign with like interest and intrigue and something is building, slower leveling is actually probably a little bit better, because you don't want the characters to, like, you know, they meet someone in the, you know, early on and they're like, oh, that is the High Chamberlain. He is one of the most dangerous men in all the Empire. I've heard it said that those who displease him will be thrown in the black cells, and that he has the Emperor's ear, and that, you know, he's the true power behind the throne in the Imperial Court. And you're like, oh, this guy sounds like a badass. And then, like, a month later, you come back to, like, the Imperial capital, but now you're, like, level 12, and you're like, oh, yeah, what is that guy? Like level 5? I don't know. Yeah, I laugh in his face. What's he going to do? If he tries to mess with me, I'm just going to disintegrate him. Like, I really don't have time for this guy. I don't know. I teleport him to another plane, and I challenge, you know, and if any of the 500 guards in the room try to mess with me, I guess I won't kill them all, but I don't know. I'll just cast some spell that just immediately debilitates all of them and takes them all out, right? Like, that's where, you know, fast leveling can be a problem. Like, if you're trying to build up a world and things that are moving, you want the characters to sort of chew on the scenery a little bit. Fast leveling is particularly useful for an adventure path where they go, look, you need to be at this level to fight this boss at the time that you get there. And then, because everything needs to progress, and the only way we know how to progress is to ramp up the tension, then the next boss is even higher level, so you need to be higher level to fight the higher level boss, because if you're not, our game won't work. Yada 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 yada. Right, Joe, the levels themselves don't matter. It could be 5, 10, 20, 50. Really what it comes down to is, how big do you want a level up to feel in the game? Right? Like, do you want a level to be like this big moment where you get some substantial rewards, or do you want it to just sort of be a little bit more run of the mill? I think 10 is kind of the perfect number, to be honest with you. It just feels like, given what the kind of advancement that you want in a campaign, it feels like, you know, I want that big kind of meaty level up, I suppose. I guess that's what I would say. Bernardo says, for me, Fate is the best system to simulate TV series episode drama, which makes sense. Fate's very generic. TV episode drama could be anything, but, you know, the aspects of Fate, the give and take, the compels, and the tagging and aspect, very much in line with the way that a TV serial drama would work. So I'm completely in time with that. As an expat living in the U.S., sorry to hear about the issues of flooding and house prices. Then again, we have a lot of issues here too. Satir says, I'm in Brazil, so it's very mild. Also, it's 9 p.m. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty rough everywhere, honestly. I mean, I think we're in that sort of crazy, weird post-COVID, I don't know, dystopian hell. I don't know. Like, we avoided going full Mad Max, but was it for naught, basically? Got to get the levels to beat the boss, to get the loot, to get the next level, to beat the boss, to get the loot, to get the next boss, to beat the loot, to gain the next loot, so that you can finish, so that you can start a new campaign with a new character. Self-confessed cynic with a $5 super chat, saying it's 100% a game feel thing. We like levels being something that happens when it makes sense in the context, e.g. when the characters do something big. Yeah, I mean, leveling, one of the, again, Jared Sorensen, a famous game designer, says that you should ask the 3 questions, which is, what is this game trying to do? How do the systems or what tools does the system give you to do that thing? And then if you do that thing, how does the game reward you? And I think those are very important questions to ask. And I think you should ask yourself about them all the time. When you're playing a game, any game, especially a role-playing game, what is this is this a reward, basically? And what kind of play, I spent a lot of time as a control analyst for an insurance company, and one of the things I tried to do is basically control human behavior through reporting, which sounds horrible, but I've said it before on this channel, I'll say it a million times again. What gets managed, what gets measured gets managed, and what gets rewarded gets repeated. You need to think about this in your games. What are you rewarding? What behaviors are you encouraging via your rewards? Because you're telling your players, this is the carrot. This is what they are going to try to do. This is where they are leading. But part of the fun of a game is feeling like your characters, to a certain extent, are in control of that reward system. If I do behavior X, I will achieve reward Y. That system informs them of how to play the game, because it's like a dopamine hit. It's like training a dog. Okay, I said sit, and then you did it, and so here's the treat. And so now when I just mention sit, you go down, the butt touch the ground, and here's your treat, and you build up this system. You're building up this kind of Pavlovian response. But it's, people enjoy being put into these reward cycles. Video games use them all the time. TTRPGs can use them too. And you just need to figure out, how do I motivate my players? One of my biggest complaints, actually, though, about milestone-based experience is it doesn't tell your players anything about how to play the game. It doesn't inform them what they need to do to be rewarded. I suppose, now that I'm thinking about it, actually what it tells them that they should do is just kind of shut up and go where the GM tells them to go, because they want to get to where, let me put it this way. In a milestone-based experience point, if you're playing, let's say an AP, what is my goal? To get the Gamemaster to get to page 17 in the adventure book, because that's where we level up. And then what is my goal after that? To get them to page 31, because that's the next place where we have to level up. So how do we get to page 31? How do we get to page 17? That's not as clear. I always talk about player agency. You need to have a goal. You need to have a decision that you want to reach, but you also have to have tools and a way that you actually have control over, agency over, to get to that point. That is the part I think that's missing in APs. That's where I struggle. I'm okay with a game saying, I want my players to progress the story, and that's when they are going to level up. They're going to be rewarded for participating in the story. To a certain extent, that's kind of what my Mutants and Masterminds game was like. But my players also understood what they needed to do to be rewarded in that context. They could take actions that would directly lead to them gaining rewards and gaining benefits to their character. And that meant that they felt like they were in control of this. I understand that the classic Gary Gygax 1970s dungeon hole in the ground filled with monsters and treasure is not for everybody. And by the way, that's fine. I actually am 100% okay with that. There are many times in my life, sometimes for many, 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 many years in a row, where I go, that style of play just seems horrible and boring to me. There are other times where I go, there is nothing more that I want than to go into some dank, dirty hole in the ground with a rusty suit of chainmail and my father's longsword, and fight hordes of dark creatures in the darkness, and then find there a glittering pile of gems and jewels, and anyways. But my point about that game is that the goals that the characters make are and the ways to achieve them are entirely in their control, right? There is no objective. There is no need to level up, right? In an adventure path, you have to level up. If you don't level up, then you won't be high enough level to fight the boss, and then the evil bad side will win, right? Like, it's spoiler alert because it's a million years old, whatever. But like Rise of the Rune Lords, if the party doesn't get to level 20, they're not going to defeat the Rune Lord at the end of the adventure, And then what's going to happen
Henry,
then?
aka Dork tip $25. Got to head out to run Abomination Vaults. XP based leveling all the way. Just make sure to also use the achievement rewards so it's not just blood money.
That's a great way to put it, Henry. Abomination Vaults, really fun adventure. I'm 100% on board with you with that. XP-based leveling, but feel free to, use those incentive-based rewards because that's like another way to communicate to your player, hey, I like what you did there today. I like what you did there this session, and I'm going to reward you with some additional experience points. And I love that feedback loop, that system. So great. Thank you so much for the tip, Henry, and we'll see you again real soon, buddy. Enjoy your session. Bernardo says, this is what I was trying to say about Fate. It's the feeling and pacing imposed by the Fate tokens and the compels. Exactly. And that's a system of mini rewards, right? Where you get into this, because you have advancements in Fate, you can gain additional aspects and stuff. But that takes this action reward cycle and takes it from the macroscopic scale of the session or the campaign and takes it down to the scene to scene, the minute to minute, the action to action component, and you get into that cycle. And you're basically saying, look, if you behave in a certain way that is consistent with the character that you have built, then this is going to be your immediate reward, which is a fate point. And that is going to allow you to do the cool thing that you want to do on your character that requires a fate point. And so it's just a beautiful humming system because the players feel like they're in control, but the GM is, without having to force anything, the players are mechanically role-playing, not speaking in character, not doing voice acting, but they are behaving and playing as a character who has these certain traits or actions. They are inherently going in a direction that the GM, without having to force them to go in that direction. And they're doing it not with walls or rails, they're doing it with encouragement. They're doing it with carrots. They're saying, like, you can go anywhere you want, but if you go over here, you get a carrot. And the players go, oh, I like carrots. Carrots are cool. They let me do fun things. I'm going to go over there in the direction of the carrot. And so it's a very, beneficial, we always talk about death spirals. This is what do they call it? A hermeneutic cycle, right? It's an upward cycle. It's an upward spiral. So, Self-Confessed Cynic says, milestones work well with mystery, especially with a mixed story sandbox game. It essentially rewards them for saving the world one step at a time. I would agree with that. And to be complete transparency, if you kind of really zoom out, most APs, certainly most Paizo APs, really kind of end up feeling kind of like mysteries, right? Like Rise of the Rune Lord is kind of a mystery in a way. Quest for the Frozen Flame is starting out, and it kind of feels like a mystery. You're not sure who's behind it. You're not, there's layers of, it's like the princess is in another castle, right? Like every time you get to a villain, it's like, no, there's an even bigger villain. And then you get to that villain, and they're like, he was only working for this even bigger villain. How little did you know? There's a vast evil conspiracy that goes to the very highest heights of the world, right? Like, I feel like a lot of Paizo APs do follow that kind of script, and certainly the Pathfinder 1 ones did. And so I do think to that end, I think Milestone does work well with mysteries, because you're basically saying, look, when you get to this point, you level up, and okay. But you don't have much action in that. You know, the players can't really go and, you know, they need to go to Magnamar. They can't decide they're going to go to Corvosa, right? Question. So if the Knights are going to try out a new system, will you try out Chronicles of Darkness? So one of our members, Damien, is always trying to get me to take a look at the Chronicles of Darkness. I kind of have, I guess, I don't know, fatigue from the White Wolf days of the old World of Darkness. Now I understand Chronicles of Darkness is a different system. You know, maybe we'll eventually take a look at that. I don't know. I don't know that I would play it. Chronicles of Darkness as a theme, as a genre, vampires, werewolves, you know, creatures of the night, not as much my forte. That's just not my forte. But I'm always interested in mechanical systems. And Damien, Pawn No Longer, who's a hero and supporter of the channel, is always trying to push me. He even said he would buy me the books just so that I would read them. So yeah, I mean, I'm sure we'll get to it eventually. One day, Golden Monkey. Let's see here. Okay, Joe's asking about Northern Reaches. Anthony says Rise of the Rune Lords is a mystery unless you read all of the hidden lore to the players, which I think is fine. Man, the bots are really in here today. Thank you, by the way, mods, for taking care of all that. Appreciate ya. All right. Total entropy. That's what I like about the Curse of the Crimson Throne. It isn't climbing the corporate villain ladder. Yes, and I actually think Curse of the Crimson Throne is probably one of the better, and I think it routinely gets voted as one of the best, if not the best, adventure paths, certainly from Pathfinder 1. Every D&D Pathfinder game I've played, there have been goals for party. Without goals, what would you even do? That's a really great point, Quark. I think the question is, whose goals are they? Are they your goals, or are they the adventure's goals? Are they the GM's goals? I think that's kind of the gist of what I'm, trying to say. Self-confessed cynic says Storm King's Thunder is very much a mystery and climbing the villain ladder. I do like calling it the villain corporate ladder. Or you're like, oh yeah, that was just a mid-level management. I'm going after a director villain now. Oh, that was just a director villain. We're going after a vice president of villainy operations in North America. Oh, the vice president's down. Now it's time to take on the C-level suite. I'm going to take out the chief monster officer, and then I'm going to take out their chief magic officer, and then finally one day I will confront the CEO of Villain Inc. and I will destroy them. It's total entropy. It would totally help, and I should probably do that. Let's see here. Yeah, okay. Well, I don't need to speak because William Brandis and Self-Confessed Cynic are basically just going to say what I was saying anyways. And I do agree, though, with what Self-Confessed Cynic says. He says, I think the core argument is whether the goals are driven by the GM or chosen by the players. And that's not for everyone. True. It's very true. That is very, very, very true. There is no... one of the things I've really come, I saw this at Origins Game Fair, but the fact is that some players are coming to D&D or they're coming to tabletop role-playing games from a very different place than I think traditionally gamers have come to tabletop role-playing games from. And part of coming to games from this way is that, we talk about player passivity. We talk about players who are essentially, viewing the game as sort of an interactive story. And they're really enjoying it. And to be honest with you, it's possible that conceit is way more profitable or, way more successful than anything that tabletop role-playing games have ever done. So all the things that I like about tabletop role-playing games might actually be the quote-unquote wrong way to do it. Because what we're seeing with the rise and the popularity of 5th edition is a vast upswelling of interest in the game, which has really become more like a interactive storytelling experience, a very stylized version of a choose your own adventure book, an interactive movie, a legacy board game. And I, board game's an interesting point to that, because I remember when the Pandemic Legacy board game came out, I hated it. I still don't like it, honestly. And it was obviously the #1 selling board game for I think a year or 2 years straight. People loved it. They loved being taken on this journey. And that might just be the way that from a money perspective, it obviously is the way to go, but it's also entirely possible that tastes have changed and what people want out of a gaming product has changed as well. That's definitely true with video games. I complain all the time, as people on my Discord and my Patreon love to tease me about. I don't really play video games anymore because I'm not interested in playing a interactive story. And with all of the cutscenes and how much of the game is games have script writers now and directors and editors, and I'm like, what do you need all that in a game for? It's a game. You play it. Well, no, it's, you hear, oh, I loved it. The story was so good. I loved that shocking reveal in the middle part of the game and blah, blah. And it really sounds like they're talking about a TV show. And I'm just like, oh, okay, that's a video game? Well, I don't want to play that. Why do I want to play that? What is the point of me playing that? I don't understand. I'll go watch a TV show. Now, I also think that most TV shows are poorly written, which is why I don't watch TV shows. Or they just end up being disappointments, like every TV show I've ever loved. Lost, Battlestar Galactica, Stargate Universe, Game of fucking Thrones, right? They're all good until they're not anymore. Because no one knows how to end anything, because it's hard to end things. Let's see. Derek doesn't play video games because he doesn't like fun. That is true, actually. I do not like fun. And William Brandis confirms I'm not wrong. That's true. That is very true. I used to play video games, but even then, if I was to play a video game today, I've talked about this before, I would play a game like SimCity or Total War or, something that is just there is no story to this game. It's just, the story is what happened in my game. That's the story. Yeah, the ending to Battlestar Galactica was very weird and disappointing. And as the years and years and years and years have gone by, I appreciate it a little bit more. But it didn't make any sense, and it was horrible, and I just didn't like it. Yeah, Anthony, but the problem with that is now I feel like some games, I have no interest in playing Dark Souls or Elden Ring because they're just too oh, you think games are just to be beaten? Well, how about our game, which isn't to be beaten? And then you see everybody going I beat it. It's okay, no, you just made it hard, and then you just respawn and you just play it again. And then a game like RimWorld, I know nothing about the game, by the way. There's a difference between a game not having story and a game in which there is no story to follow. I don't know the game though, so I'll, but I guess a classic point of this is I don't want to play a D&D campaign that's just a random dungeon full of random monsters and we just go in there and kill them. What am I doing? Where's the story? That's not I don't want to do that. I want things that I want levers to push. Just a bunch of randomness. Oh, there's no story. It's just a bunch of random nonsense. That's not good either. There still needs to be structure. There still needs to be things that I push and pull. That is true. Growing up, I did love Final Fantasy 6, 7, and 8. Not really 8, actually. I never really liked 8, actually. I loved 4 and 7. 4 and 7 were my favorite. But now, yeah, I mean, I like them out of nostalgia. But, you know, in retrospect, I'm just like, yeah, I mean, I'm walking through a story. I push the buttons when they tell me, they push the buttons when they tell me to push the buttons. And if I don't push the buttons, then my game ends, and then I have to reload it. No. I played the shit out of 7. 8, as soon as I left Balam Garden, I got the Diablos Guardian Force, and then I equipped it and got Encounter None, and then Encounter 0, and that way I didn't have to fight any creatures for the entire game, and I just raced through it until I beat Ultima Cia, and then I ended the game. Final Fantasy X is the only Final Fantasy I ever gave away. Tim asked me to borrow it, and I said, you can just have it. Final Fantasy X was horrible. I hated 10 very, very much. Yeah, Quark. So that's exactly the type of game that I want to avoid, right? It's not that I'm trying, it's difficult to explain. I don't want there to be a premeditated story, but if I go out into the woods and I kill a bunch of monsters, then that should matter. If I go out into the woods and I kill a bunch of bandits, then the GM, this is why Game Masters exist. This is why Game Masters exist. This is why we play these games. Because if my players go out into the woods and they kill some bandits, now I don't have a plan. Killing these bandits is not part of some quest to kill the Rune Lords. Maybe I made it up. Maybe I randomly rolled it out of a table. Some people like Ben love to roll it out of a random table. Some people like me love to just, think of ideas or concepts or things that I find are interesting. And when my players start playing, I might say, oh, there's a couple of things. There's a nearby tower that's said to be inhabited by goblins that used to be a wizard's academy. Goblins would certainly have no use for scrolls or potions or wands. Maybe some of those trinkets are still there. But you've also heard reports that a band of bandits has begun increasingly attacking the main road connecting to the nearby city of Almsville. Horrible name. GM tip number 1. Always keep a list of places and people's names just on your GM screen. Coming up with names on the fly is really hard, even for someone like me. Anyways, so the party goes and they fight the bandits. Okay, cool. They killed the bandits. But now something should happen. Like maybe those bandits were connected to something. Maybe they weren't. Maybe the sheriff just says, you did really nice work with those bandits. Would you like to be deputies? And the players talked about something. Go, I don't know. It would be kind of sweet to be deputies, Like maybe we could get like a Wild West Tombstone vibe going on here. And you're like, and the party comes back to you and go, hell yeah, we'll be deputies. And then the party becomes deputized. And then I go, okay, what might happen? Oh, there's a local thieves guild in town. And they go, oh, there's a bunch of young new deputies. They'll be easy to coerce. We want to make sure that they get in on the take so that we can control them kind of like we control everybody else. Because wink, wink, nudge, nudge, the reason why there was all these bandits problems is because basically everybody's corrupt. So then the local thieves guild or mafioso comes to them and starts like trying to bribe them. And now the players could go, that sounds sweet too. Yeah, we'll totally be corrupt cops. We'll totally be corrupt goblins. We'll take the money. We'll be really rich and powerful and we'll level up. Or the party might say, no, that's not right. We'll fight that. I don't care what they do. It doesn't matter to me. The strength of being the GM is whatever the players say, I, being a conscious thinking machine who has all sorts of resources and knowledge and cultural influences and media influences and random tables and books of monsters and books of other ideas, I can take whatever the players do and I can just respond in a way that feels logical, that feels natural and exciting. It's going to create adventure. It's going to create more problems, right? Everything snowballs. And the players are going to go, look at everything that's happening. It's crazy. It's nonsense. But it 100% happened because of the choices that we made. And these weren't choices. It wasn't like you gave us, we had to go option A or option B. Everything that's happened is completely, it didn't exist up until last week or last month. This was nobody's plan. Nobody wrote this out. Nobody scripted this out. We just all sat here, and because of the dice that we were rolling and because of the decisions, especially the players, because of the decisions that we were making, that's how we got to where we are today. For me personally, that's the most fun of the game. Can you give us an example of a campaign where it wasn't a mystery and it doesn't have a big bad with underlings? Well, I guess the question is define a campaign. I mean, I'm not trying to sound like a dick there, but it's like, yeah, I mean, it's, I mean, certainly, you could just have a campaign where it's like, hey, our goal is to become wealthy merchants and wealthy lords. Okay, well, how do you do that? I don't know. We'll just start, gaining treasure, building farms, and I'll make an army and I'll march on the nearby country and I'll force them to become a protectorate of them, and I will, create massive taxes and I'll tax them into oblivion and I'll become the wealthiest, most powerful person in the land. I mean, that sounds pretty cool to me. It's like an entrepreneurial adventurer. Well, there was no mystery there and there was no big bad, so you got to it. You did whatever you want. So let's see. Yeah, Final Fantasy. Look, I don't hate Final Fantasy. It's a big part of my nostalgia of being a game, but I just, I just don't want to. The fantasy name generators can be a little rough. Sometimes they come up with some really weird news. Self-confessed cynic. Oh, heck, breaking news. The Persona series is coming to Switch, y'all. Let's go. Persona! I make fun of my friend all the time because of that stupid game. Stupid. Why do they have to yell at Persona every time they use Persona? It's so dumb. Look at everybody excited. I can't stand it. Oh, my God. All right. Stop talking about stupid game. This is what this live chat is about. It's about cheap sex dating. It is a JRPG to the max. That is weird. Nice. Yeah, I don't understand what's going on with all the craziness in the chat tonight. They must have really come for us. They knew we were big. They knew we were powerful. They said, we want in on that. We want in on that sweet action. All right. Oh my gosh. Tails? I don't know that one. They knew we were lonely. Damn, savage. Look, again, everybody has I like watching people fix watches on YouTube, right? Everybody has their unique guilty pleasures. Who am I to argue with you? If you like playing those games, I say knock yourself out. I think they're a little silly, but again, I think it really just comes down to how you want to experience your entertainment, and how involved you want to be. Like for me, I either want to be really involved or like not involved at all. Like I just want it to be like completely passive, or I want to be like 100% in control, whether that's a game or not, for my entertainment. This half in, that's not for me. I like to be able to make a ton of decisions. In fact, there are board games that I end up not playing or selling or giving away, or I don't play them anymore because I'm like, okay, I'm playing this game because I want to make a lot of decisions. I want to make interesting decisions. I want to make fun decisions. I want to make impactful decisions that are going to help me achieve victory in this game. There are some games that, quite frankly, just don't have enough interesting decisions. They have a lot of decisions, but they're not interesting. Or they have a lot of decisions, but none of them really seem to matter once. And I usually stop playing that game, you know? And because I'm like, it's not enough. So again, I like my entertainment. I either like to make a ton of decisions or I like to make basically no decisions. And a no decision would be like a book or a movie where I just kind of go, you know, there we go. You know, Shadram, you know, I'm familiar with this concept of ARC or games like it. Minecraft kind of comes to mind, actually. And I think that could be fun. Yeah, I think Minecraft could be fun. Ultimately, though, no game, whether it's Minecraft or ARC, is going to be able to have the responsiveness and the feedback that can come from a living person, from a game master. And that to me is, you know, because a game master does have an agenda, right? I am okay with a game master having an agenda. Again, I don't have it here. To quote Dungeon World, right? A game master has this agenda to make everything feral, to keep the characters and the players' lives interesting, right? Like, as a GM, I can take what is happening in a game, and yeah, like I could take it in any number of directions. Again, I'm trying to apply logic. I'm trying to apply what makes sense. I'm trying to take, what do we know about this game? What do we know about these characters? What do we know about these things? Well, you know, we could take that, and I could take it in any number of directions. I could take it in probably the way that probably makes the most sense. But maybe the way that makes the most sense is kind of boring. It doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't lead anywhere interesting. But I, being the GM, I have an agenda. I want to make the players' lives interesting. I want to make it fun for my players. I want to make it fun for what they're interested in. What do they respond to? What gets them going? How do I set up a situation where it's going to be a tough decision, right? That's what I like. And so I can push that. And I don't think a game like Minecraft or ARC, I never played ARC, but I did play Minecraft when it first, you know, was kind of becoming a big thing. And it was fun to, you know, go onto the server and just kind of do our own thing and sort of make up our own goals. But ultimately the responsiveness from the server, which was just basically just spawn random monsters, it didn't have an agenda. It didn't keep the story feral. So like, again, I think that's the issue. And I see, Quark, that you must have missed it. But yeah, I mean, I think basically, Quark, what we're trying to say is, for me, I think that the kind of entertainment that really gets me going is one where the players are pushing the agenda. They are the GM. Let's put it this way. The GM, in my mind, should be reacting to the players, not the players reacting to the GM. And that is usually what happens in a lot of games. A GM will say, here you go. And then the players go, okay, we have to react to that situation. We have to react to that threat. We have to react to this plot, to this mystery, to this villain. And then we accomplish our goal. And then the GM puts out another plot, thread, or mystery, or villain, or plot. And then the players go, I have to react. Right? That's kind of the AP's way of doing it. And that's the way a lot of people like it, because they want to be asked questions. And they want to then look down at their character sheets, or maybe, depending on the edition of the game, look into their minds, and they want to figure out a solution. They treat the game kind of like a puzzle. And I get that. Puzzles are fun for people. I don't particularly like them. That's because I'm colorblind and they're hard for me. But they like to be asked questions. I prefer for the players to be the ones asking the questions, or at least demanding answers. That to me is a much more deterministic way to play the game. It's me taking control of the game. And by the way, this is not just true for TTRPGs. This is true for Magic the Gathering. This is true for board games as well. I like games that give me a lot of options, and then I am the one presenting threats. I am the one taking deliberate actions. I'm not just reacting to the game board state, right? I'm pushing in, and I am making the game, or the Dungeon Master, react to what my character is doing in this fictional narrative world that we are cohabitating, that we are collaboratively building together. And then it becomes this conversation. It becomes this back and forth. And I think that is always super, super fun. That to me is the pinnacle. That's not for everybody. Again, I'm fully aware of that. And there are people who don't want to ask questions. There are people who prefer to sit quietly and have something explained to them and talk to them. And then at a certain point, the GM will stop and he will ask them, okay, I've told you what's going on. You understand what you have to do. How do you do it? And some people want to play that way. I don't. Okay. Let's see. Shadram says, I'm planning to make my next homebrew inspired by survival games. I'm planning to make my next homebrew inspired by survival games, mixed with some Wes March's ideas. So totally love the idea of having the GM make PC actions have a real effect in the world. Yeah, and you're not going to get it right. Like, listen, I said this before. Even a really great game of Dungeons & Dragons or Pathfinder or whatever is not going to compare to a tightly written, tightly scripted, tightly edited book or novel or TV show or movie, because of course it's not. Your game is going to be awkward and cringy at times, and the pacing is going to be off because you don't know what is happening, and you're trying to, it's like the difference between going to see, professional improv and professional like theater. Look, really good improv people are really, really good at what they do, but it's never going to be as beautiful or funny or seamless as something which has been carefully written and scripted beforehand. 100%. But there's a magic to going to see improv. And I also, by the way, full disclosure, you and me and our players are not professional improv actors or players. So we're not even going to be as good at the thing that is already not as good. So we all get that. And it's about embracing, it's like your 5-year-old's drawing that you put on the refrigerator. It's objectively, it's a horrible drawing, but to you and to your family, it's beautiful because it was your child drawing your first time that you went to the beach, and it captures that moment in a way that nothing else could. That a multi-million-dollar artist could never capture that moment for you and your family as well as your 5-year-old did with a couple crayons in a scribbly mess. That's kind of what, to me, a D&D campaign should be. It's a 5-year-old's drawing that goes on your refrigerator. Question. Why don't you do that bandit thing in the live stream if you like it so much? Let the players choose a path. Frank, that is entirely kind of what we want to do with our alternate game. To be completely honest with you, Frank, part of the reason that we don't do that is because Pathfinder 2, most players play adventure path, and that is the way that a lot of people like to see the game played. There is a non-zero, like we love it. We have almost 200 patrons. It's just awesome. We get 20, 30, 40, sometimes 50 people into these live streams. But, we do our APs. We get thousands of views on those in the VODs. We sometimes had over 100 people in there watching it live. The fact of the matter is, that's kind of what people want. People want kind of a scripted game that goes along and does the thing. That is what most people are expecting. That's what they're expecting out of a Critical Role, and that's what they're expecting out of our game. They want to see this real AP being played. Now, not everybody, maybe not you, and certainly not a lot of people in our community, by me, I mean the Knights of the Last Call community, because we think a little bit different. than maybe the mainstream does, which is okay, which is fair, which is fine. But I do want to experiment and show that style of play more often. But I got to be honest with you, Frank. I'm going to lose money on it. I'm not going to get the views. I'm not going to get the tips. I'm not going to get the ad revenue. I'm not going to get anything that I would get if I just, ran a 5e adventure from Wizards of the Coast. Because that's what the people want. Kendall asks, maybe this is kind of a dumb question, but as a GM, do you consider, say, describing a room before players ask about it, having the players respond to the GM rather than the GM responding to the players? I think good D&D, good role-playing games should be like a conversation. I don't think that the GM should just give a lengthy monologue and then the players respond. I think it's like a conversation, right? Like if I wanted to tell you about my new job, I wouldn't just come up to you, start a conversation, and wait for you to ask me about my new job. I would say, Kendall, I'm really excited. I got a new job. And I would stop, because that's how conversations work. I would wait for you to ask a question, or maybe you would say something like, wow, that's great. Tell me more. Now, I would not then proceed to talk for 25 minutes about every detail of my job. I would expound a little bit more. I would maybe entice you with a couple of interesting nuggets. Oh, it's going to be really great. It has a really, really, really great flexible schedule, and I'm really excited about the new type of work I'm going to be able to do. And then you're like, which of these things interests me more? The flexible work schedule or his work? Well, I don't really care what he does for work, so I'm going to ask about the flexible work schedule. Really? Flexible work schedule? What do you mean? Well, I've always wanted to travel more, and this new job has essentially unlimited vacation time. Obviously, you have to manage your workload, but they don't, ting you down to the hour or the day of PTO. You kind of just have a lot of flexibility that way. And you go, wow, that sounds really great. Do you have any interesting ideas of where you'd like to go next? Actually, I do. I was really thinking about going to New Zealand or Australia. Oh, that's awesome. I would love to go there. And now we're not even talking about the job. We're in a completely different part of the conversation. Who got us there? I don't know. You, me, both of us. That's how a conversation works. RPGs work the same way. I don't know if that's a really bad description, but that is how things like that should work. Like, yes, a GM's job is to present a world and make sure that the players understand what's going on, right? We have to make sure that we are on the same page. That is always very important in RPGs. We don't have pictures, we don't have graphics or images, so we have to make sure that we're on the same page. That's what minis and grids are all about. It's about making sure that we're on the same page. But not everything in the game has to have a mini, and especially things that don't really work with miniatures. So you have to make sure everybody's on the same page. And then KC answered it beautifully, so that's perfectly. But how do I feel about a top deck Sark and Rage Maverick style for the win? I mean, that's legendary, Dirt. That's how legends are made. Aetherwolf, morning all. I get to listen to the rest of the chat live for a change. Well, that's awesome, Aetherwolf. Awesome. Well, glad to hear that you're here and you're enjoying the rest of the chat live. Let's see. Golden Monkey asks, do you have any play-by-post or email style games going? I do not. I've lurked on your channel too long and I'd like to join, just not sure what tier to pick. I have little time to play full sessions. Golden Monkey, great question. We do not currently have any play-by-post or email style games going. Mostly because we basically have two styles of going, but whether it's our community games or our Northern Reaches games, all of them aren't actual ongoing campaigns. They're scheduled, you play them, and then, you could play a couple days later, or you could play a couple weeks later. Furthermore, a lot of our community games, and definitely our Northern Reaches games, are designed that we have sometimes 2-hour sessions. And that's designed so that people who don't have a lot of time can at least get a game in, play for 2 hours, and then, go back to their sort of day-to-day life. But if you are interested in playing in Northern Reaches, then you need to be a Knight tier, which is our $5 minimum tier. Certainly there are advantages to being higher level, but if you're interested in checking it out and you want to see some of that stuff, I think you should choose the Knight tier as a way to start. But we do try to make, we've designed our games and our community games, which are just completely being, people picking and playing whatever they want to do. Usually there's a lot of considerations made to try to make sure that people who are in weird time zones or in different parts of the world or don't have a lot of time in their hands can still figure out a way to play. So, but we do not have any play-by-post or email style games going. I don't know how much interest there would be in that. I actually have no idea if people would like that or if people would dislike that. I've played the only thing in the last 10 years that I have played by post/email style games is Games of Diplomacy, the board game. Total Entropy says, play a 5e adventure converted to Pathfinder 2nd Edition. You get all the YouTube search algorithm benefits. It's interesting, but no. Honestly, Total Entropy, if I was going to play a 5e adventure, I think I would just play 5e. I mean, part of the advantage of playing an adventure is it's just, converted. Honestly, that would be fantastic for the channel, which would be like, oh my God, a Pathfinder 2 player plays 5e. I don't know. We've talked about this. Aaron's game is wrapping up this Friday, his Pathfinder 2 game. So not only have I been running Pathfinder 2 for the last 2 years, but for the last, year or so, or at least 8 to 10 months, I've also been playing in a weekly Pathfinder 2 game run by Mr. Smith. So a lot of Pathfinder 2, in addition to everything I do for the channel. And at one point in there, I was also running another Pathfinder 2 game. So if you could believe it, 3 Pathfinder 2 games that I was playing in or running at various times. And I'm not 100% sure yet what we are going to do with our Friday game slot. I do know that, Aaron has been running games for a long time, hasn't had a chance really to be a player. Quest for the Frozen Flame is basically his only opportunity to be a player. And since that's not something that's televised, there is a part of me that is at least considering doing something with 5th edition. Maybe like some sort of 5th edition variant, like Shadows of the Demon Lord or 5 Torches Deep. But I honestly, I don't know the system that well, to be honest with you. And as a content creator in the tabletop role-playing game space, even if it's a system that I don't necessarily like, it's definitely a system that I should know more about. And I like D20, but I also feel like I just want to get away from the crazy amount of mechanics. And the one thing I hear about 5th edition all the time is, there's no mechanics, it's really boring, nothing's balanced. And I kind of like, that kind of sounds kind of sweet. Kind of sounds like old school D&D, which I could just go play basic or old school essentials. But if I'm going to play something stripped down that doesn't work and it has nothing mechanical in it, why wouldn't I just play the game that everybody plays? And so that way I can speak more intelligently about it when people come for me or whatever, or say I don't know anything about 5th edition. Anyways, I don't know. We'll see. Because, again, I'm excited to get to play Root. There's other games that I'd be excited to play as well, but I definitely think that there is a world where we end up playing some variation or form of 5th edition. Also, too, remember, the stated purpose of this channel is creating educational and entertaining RPG content. It is not to be the greatest Pathfinder 2 content creator on YouTube. That is not what our tagline is. That is not what our Patreon says. Yes, we started off running Pathfinder 2. But my goal really is to elevate the level of conversation, elevate the level of discourse that is going on at your table, on the internet, maybe even all the way to the very highest levels of the ivory towers of game designers. I want to elevate the level of discourse. I want to make people more aware about why these games work, what they do, and how they work. And if I'm legitimately interested, this is a tough thing for me to say, but if I am legitimately interested about reaching the widest possible audience, then I need to figure out a way to, because listen, we talk about Pathfinder 2 on this channel. Of course we do. But we also talk about a lot of other stuff, like the philosophy of role-playing games, the why, Not just the what, the why. And I think the why is way more important than the what. I have a million systems behind me. There's a million systems that come out every single day. Well, maybe not every single day, but every single year. You could play role-playing games with any of these game systems. But understanding agendas and principles and philosophies of play, I think, are universal. If I truly meant what I said when I said I want to educate people, then why I need to figure out a way to reach the RPG audience. And the RPG audience today is mostly looking at 5th edition content. Now, do I want to go and make a 5th edition channel where I say, oh, here's how you make a warlock paladin that can do 700 damage a round? No, of course I don't want to do that. But from a business perspective, it makes sense to try to reach a bigger audience. And 2, from a philosophical standpoint of creating more knowledge within this RPGosphere, it makes sense for me to try to figure out a way to speak to 5e indoctrinated, 5e diehards, 5e fanboys better than I am. And right now I don't feel like I can because I don't really understand the game that well. So that's my full take on that. Sorry. That was kind of an off rant. Let's see here. Self-confessed cynic says, asked above, is there a TTRPG that starts with everyone poor and having to find different ways to make money, but not through combat, i.e. a TTRPG tycoon game? I don't think so. I really don't, actually. I don't know if people would be interested in that, but I mean, like a mercantile empire, like everyone, I'm not one that's like very mechanical. There might be one that's like, Fate or Powered by the Apocalypse, right? That's a little bit more flitty-giddy. I would argue, self-confessed cynic, Blades in the Dark kind of does that. I mean, when I ran my last Blades in the Dark campaign, the group started off basically as street urchins who were selling drugs, and they ended up becoming basically lords of the city. In fact, one of them even became the mayor of the city through massive political underhanded shenanigans. So maybe Blades in the Dark. And to be honest with you, I think they fired their guns twice in the entire campaign. Everything else was done through deals and ambush. I mean, that doesn't mean they didn't kill people, but they were doing it through skullduggery, not through straight up combat. Let's see. But that is interesting. Damien says, I could maybe set up some play-by-post forum for the Discord. I think it'd be interesting. Damien says, I'll say it over and over again. Announce you're playing D&D and then run basic. I talked about this. I've talked with this with Aaron as well. There was a Taking 20 video, which was really impactful to me. It was a recent video. And he basically said, it's not really what he said. It's what it made me think. But he was talking about 5th edition being like an amalgamation of parts of 3rd edition, parts of 2nd edition, and a little bit of 4th edition. And I thought, yeah, that is kind of true. I said 5th edition really is like basic D&D, right? Just basic. Matty Ice just became an adventurer. Matty Ice, welcome. Welcome to the adventurer of Naya Last Call. You are very, very, very strong. Very awesome. Glad to see it. Welcome. Enjoy your custom emojis and emotes. Thank you very much for supporting us. We love to see it. That's awesome. A lot of fun there, and love to see that. That's awesome. Thanks so much for that. We'll give you a Horizon Thundersphere too. Just because we haven't had one in a while. Love it. Thanks, Maddie. Thanks for the support. Love to see it. Replace your Friday game with you and Aaron running Northern Reaches game. Anthony, I would love to run a Northern Reaches game. especially once I get a little bit more time. The issue there is I feel like that's unfair, right? Like if I ran a Northern Reaches game, I'm not trying to toot my own horn here, but everybody be like, well, that'd be pretty cool. I'd love to get into a Northern Reaches game run by Derek or run by Bob or run by Aaron. And I just wouldn't want to, I don't know. I'd want to make it fair in some capacity. Total says, I've heard good things about the Dune 2D20 system. We could talk about this at another time, Total Entropy, but I own the Dune 2D20 system. I like it a lot, but what I like even more, and you can check this out. We're gonna. I won't talk about it, but you can go look it up, and then you can ping me about it later. Mophidius, who makes the Dune 2D20 system, just came out with a new boxed set, which is called Agents of Dune. And what Agents of Dune is it's an alternate history of the Dune universe. My only problem with the Dune universe is if you set it after the events of the first book, it's not as interesting. What makes Dune interesting is the political tension between the Landsraad and the Spacing Guild and the Bene Gesserit and the Emperor. But if you set it before the events of the movie or the book, you're like, well, yeah, but I mean, I know what's going to happen, and I know that the Kwisatz Haderach is coming, and this is, I know what's going to happen to the Atreides on Arrakis, and that's not as interesting. This new campaign is called Agents of Dune, and it's like an alternate history where House Atreides don't take over. Like they're not. I mean, they're popular. But like there is no Paul. There is no Kwisatz Haderach. There's still Bene Gesserit. There's still Spacing Guild. There are still people who have prescient or near prescient abilities. Sort of pseudo Kwisatz Haderachs. But a different house takes control of Arrakis, and they aren't involved in a blood vendetta feud and blah blah blah. They aren't wiped out. So it's like you get to play in the universe, but really actually with your own unique spin on it. And I think that's really interesting. So check that out. It's a box set. It's called Agents of Dune. And it is the 2D20 system, which itself is really cool. Blueberry says, not going to lie, coming at 5e from a slightly more survivable OSR perspective has made it 100 times more enjoyable for me, at least. And I would agree with that, Blueberry. I mean, a lot of the things that people complain about 5th edition, there's not enough mechanical interests, and the combat's kind of, boring, and there's really not that much balance. Those 3 things sound a lot like old school D&D to me. They sound a lot like basic D&D, where there really wasn't any kind of balance. It was kind of there, but not really. It was kind of rough. Your character, there were no feats. There were no trip actions. A fighter just swung their sword. They like that. The only thing you could do mechanically in the game was attack. They didn't have rules for anything else. Sure, it's an RPG. You could make something up. Your GM could make a ruling. But in terms of the actual rules, fighters swing their swords. That was it. And then in terms of mechanics, a fighter literally got nothing. They were proficient with all weapons. They could use all armor. They could use all shields. That was it. That was the only thing that they got for the entire 20 levels of the game. So, yeah, in some ways, 5th edition kind of reminds me of BX D&D, which is crazy. Also, any good recommendations for a sci-fi game like Dungeon World? That's a great question. Do I have a good recommendation for a sci-fi powered by the apocalypse game? Let me think. It hasn't been done as well. There's been a lot of cyberpunk games, but there hasn't been as much in the sci-fi. I really like Scum and Villainy, but that's not powered by the apocalypse. That is a Forged in the Dark game, which uses the Blades in the Dark rules engine. But I actually don't know that I have played a sci-fi powered by the apocalypse game. So I don't actually have a good answer for you, I'm sorry to say. Infinite Galaxies seem dope, but I'm wondering what other hacks people have seen. I honestly haven't seen as many. I got to be honest with you. I think that's a fairly underdeveloped area. I just don't like how in 5e nothing feels like it matters. Correct, Total Entropy. That is correct. Which in a certain weird sense, could be a good thing. All enemies feel the same mechanically, and all enemies generally feel the same. And again, total entry, I don't know what your gaming background is, but if you've played old school D&D, that is very true. That is also very, very similar. Now, I know what that feels like. That feels like nothing. But all it means is you just have, and I agree, it's a lot of work, but it means you have a lot of design room or game elements to just kind of make up whatever you want. If you're a GM who feels very comfortable with, like, you know, okay, the party goes into a clearing, maybe this is just totally random, and they end up, saving this sprite who is being attacked by two wraiths. And the sprite, says like, "Oh my gosh, thank you so much for your assistance. I am the representative of the unseelie court in this area. How can I repay you?" It's like, "Oh, we don't need anything." He says, "Well, no, let me repay you." And he grants each of your characters the ability once per day to, and I'm going to use a 5th edition here term, right? Once per day, you can tap into the power of the Fae, and you can immediately recover 3 hit dice. That is a mechanic I just made up, literally on the spot. Does that break the game? Who knows? Probably, maybe, but the game's already broken, so who cares? You just add whatever you want. You can't fuck it up. It's already completely useless. There's a weird freedom that comes in that. It would be very hard for me to want to do something like that in Pathfinder 2, because I go, look, this game is beautifully created. It's intricate, and it works, and it meshes together well. You don't want a butterfly effect. I don't want to break one thing and twist one thing and then suddenly know it, like the whole game just kind of falls apart. Again, thank you, Matty Ice. Again, I'm just kind of catching up here with the chat. Set it during the Butlerian Jihad. To see, the problem with setting something during the Butlerian Jihad is I like the current state of the Imperium in the novels. I like it being whatever it is, 10,414. I like the intrigue of the Spacing Guild, the Bene Gesserit, the Landsrod, the Mentats, the Ixians, the Bene Tlilax. I like that world, and I want to play in that world. I just don't want Paul to come in and fuck it all up. Right. So Matty Ice, this is a great point. So I'm a woodworker. Okay. So let me describe something to you. This has nothing to do, you could be anything, but okay. Sorry. All right. Let me restart. I'm a woodworker. So let me describe something to you. When I am sharpening, woodworkers use sharp things in order to cut wood, chisels and plane blades. Okay. And all a chisel or a plane blade is 2 pieces of metal meeting at a point, right? 2 planes meeting at a point. This is the same way a knife works, so this is nothing crazy. Well, when you make a knife edge, or when you're sharpening it, you can make that edge very, 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 very thin, very shallow. This is like a razor, and it will cut beautifully. It will give you thin, wafer thin shavings. But when you make an edge that is that delicate, like a razor, it is very easy to bend it, break it off, or ruin it. There's no strength behind the edge. It does cut beautifully, and you will get incredible, immaculate shaving and work with it, but it won't last. And anything goes wrong, or if you try to use it in a way that it really wasn't intended to be used perfectly, you're going to ruin that edge. You're going to blunt it, you're going to break it, you're going to roll it over, and you're going to have to resharpen it, and you're going to have to go back to the thing. Or you could sharpen your chisel or your plane blade to be a little bit more thick, a little bit more of an obtuse angle. That edge isn't as sharp, but it's got more meat behind it. It's got more metal behind it. The edge has a lot more rigidity and a lot more strength. And that edge is going to hold up to abuse a lot better. It's not going to cut as well. Your cuts aren't going to be as smooth. They're not going to be as beautiful, but you're going to get a lot more time between sharpenings. And if you go at the come in at the wood at the wrong angle, it's not going to immediately chip or blunt or roll over your edge. You're going to be able to kind of use it a little bit more rough and not have to be quite so delicate with it. that to me is kind of a comparison between some of these game engines that we were talking about. The more you design a game engine to be very, 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 very delicate and good, the more that can kind of go wrong with it if you don't use it in the right way or if you try to change things about it. So that's kind of my thought process there. I played basic D&D and every other edition mainly as a DM. 5e is nothing like those editions. It's caused more arguments of the rules than I've ever experienced, and I played Shadowrun. That's interesting, Joe. I wonder why that is the case. Again, this is why I don't have the background. I don't have the experience. We picked up 5e. We played it for like 2 or 3 sessions. I went to a bunch of play tests early in the 5e development. I went to some conventions. I went to some specific playtesting conventions to meet with the design team because, I mean, D&D was my life and I was going to full on embrace it. And I was like kind of interested in some of the ideas and kind of not interested. And as playtest feedback started coming back, they started shifting the game more and more away from what I thought was going to be kind of really cool and interesting. And when they finally released it, I thought, well, this game really kind of looks like a toned back version of 3rd edition D&D. It kind of feels like somewhere around 2nd edition D&D to basic. And I've played those games. And why would I play this game again? We played it for a few sessions and then we put it away and we went back to Pathfinder 1. So I don't have a ton of experience with it. And, you know, I think there's more to it. Just so I can at least be able to speak intelligently on it. And yeah, I do agree again with what Maddie says and what Joe here is saying. Scratch Paper Games says, and we're going to start wrapping up here for folks. My only real gripe with 5e is that unless you're good at story and game crafting, it's a bit bland. Well-considered mechanics can very much enhance the player experience. Scratch Paper Games, I will agree with that. Number one, love your icon logo. Love that cartoon show. It's incredible. To be clear, I don't particularly think any D20 game has really interesting mechanics that push you towards interesting story. Games like Powered by the Apocalypse, Blades in the Dark, Fate, these games all have mechanics which are designed towards creating narrative, interesting fictional moments, story, as we might call it. D&D and Pathfinder are both action resolution systems. They are agnostic to what you are doing. The DC in D&D, the DC in Pathfinder 2, has everything to do with how hard something is, how tall the mountain is, how slippery the rocks are. It has no consideration for the narrative truth or importance of a moment. So in my mind, and that's great if you are trying to do certain things with your game. I personally think that the way that a lot of people use Pathfinder 2 and D&D 5th edition, the kind of games they want to play, I particularly, me personally, think that they are terrible at those kind of games. And I think that those players would have, and again, this is where, you know, I have learned being part of this community. You have helped me. And I don't just mean you as in people in my Discord. I mean people on YouTube who have commented. I read it. I disagree with Derek. I think he's an asshole. I think he's a dick. I think he's a self-righteous prick. Okay, great. But I'm reading that. And listen, some people are just literally screaming at me and they're being mean. But some people make a good point. And yes, I do need to understand that people play the game differently. And I am not going to go out there and tell someone who's really loving their game that they are playing it wrong. But between me and you, they're playing it wrong, right? Like they're fighting uphill. The system is not working for their favor. They might not even realize it. You know, it's like someone who lives with chronic pain. They don't even know what normal feels like anymore because they're so used to dealing with their chronic pain. And then they finally get relief and they go, how did I live the way that I used to live? This is like a whole new world. For me, a lot of people who fight against 5th edition and fight against Pathfinder 2 are doing so because that game system is not designed to create the kind of experience that they and their players want at their table. And again, this is why I'm not going to tell someone that they're dumb and they're wrong for playing the game. But as a channel dedicated to increasing the level of educational information and the quality of the discourse in the RPG community, this is why I think it's so important that I try to reach as wide of an audience as possible and at least make people aware of these ideas, to question what it is that they want out of a game and whether or not the system or game that they are playing is giving them exactly what they need. And then if they do have thoughts or ideas or questions, to say, well, there are these other options and some of them are good for what you want and some of them are bad for what you want. Why don't you try some of them and find out? So Roll for Combat says you are playing it wrong. That is 100% true. I'm definitely playing it wrong. I mean, I'll give you an example. I really respect Roll for Combat, Steven. And obviously he and his group will go back for 30 years, and they've been playing games for a long time. The way that Steven describes the type of games that he wants to play and the type of characters and adventures that his players want to play in are very different from the way that I want to play my game. The difference is I know that Steven is aware of this, of the world that we live in. He's aware of all these other RPGs. So he and his players are very much making an informed choice. This is the game that they want to play, and this is how they want to play it. I think there's a lot of people out there who don't even know what they don't know. And those are the people that I think, those are the people I'd like to reach. I'd like to say, hey, how are you? How's it going? Maybe this game is better for you. Okay. I would love for you to experience it and play it so I could hear your opinion. Yeah, I mean, Joe, I again, something tells me though that the way that I would play 5th edition D&D, because of what everyone else has told me, I would put very little stock in the game rules. I might not even look at them. Like for me, 5th edition would be every DC is 5, 10, 15, 20. You roll D20. You add your stat. You add your proficiency if it applies. I probably wouldn't use skills. I definitely wouldn't use feats. And if I think that's a great idea or it makes logical sense, you'd have advantage. If I think that's a horrible idea or it makes narrative sense, you'd have disadvantage. That's it. I don't know. That would probably be my rule engine of the game. And I wouldn't be trying to challenge my players. I wouldn't be trying to make it a video game where I'm like, this needs to be hard because I bought this video game and this video game needs to challenge me to a certain level, because if it doesn't challenge me, then what was the point of this game? That's not what I would think out of that game. Actually, I know that's probably strange to think about, but that isn't something that I think about. Like when I think about a game like Root, I'm not thinking about how do I make this so that my players are challenged, that the encounters, there aren't encounters. There's no way. You're not pushing the characters to, I want them to have to struggle to overcome challenges and combats. No, I actually don't. I just want there to be interesting choices, and I want the players to have to make them. That's all I really want out of that RPG. So anyways, I'm getting off topic here. Oh, Roll for Combat says no dice either. Exactly. There you go. So again, people know what they want, and when they can speak intelligently on that, and then when I can ask them why they play this way and they have an answer for it, at that point, my respect for them can only go through the roof. Even if they're playing a game or a style that I very much am opposed to and I don't personally enjoy, I love educated, smart people who are in this hobby of ours. And I'm not trying to say that people are dumb. I'm just trying to say that people are new. There's so many new people, and there's a lot of people who've only ever played D20 Fantasy. Maybe they played some 3rd edition, they skipped 4th edition, they played PF1, now they're playing PF2. Maybe they just have only played 5th edition and you literally don't know any other games are out. So, those are the people I want to reach, right? If you're smart and you're having this conversation, I don't, I will end with this. Blueberry says, I know the fighter argument was hashed out months ago, but one of my players just switched over to fighter and said, I feel like I'm playing the game on easy mode. I have been playing this Pathfinder 2 campaign for the last 8 months, and we're leveling very aggressively in order to sort of hyper accelerate the game. And I've been playing a cleric since level 1. And at level 13, for a change of pace, level 15, for a change of pace, I swapped out my level 15 cleric for a level 15 fighter. And I feel like I'm playing on easy mode. The power of the +2 is it is very one note. It's just a very satisfying one note. If the one note is everything is dead, everything is prone, nothing can ever move again, I am Lord, my power is dominion over all, then yes, that is the note. It is repetitive over and over again. But yes, it's yeah. And I got to be honest with you, I'm still not impressed with the spells at the end of the game. I just, I mean, obviously Bob is our spellcaster, but yeah, it's just not, I mean, maybe there's some crazy weird cheese or something like that you could pull out for a spellcaster, but even then it's just kind of crazy. But anyways, it is definitely the ultimate fix. Okay, so this is the last thing. No, I was playing a cleric, but to be, that is a fair point, self-confessing. But Bob was playing a sorcerer, somebody else was playing a swashbuckler, someone else was playing an inventor. But I just want to put one thing out there, just one thing that bothers me. Okay, I'm gonna type in the chat here. Burns, self-reliant cynic. That is good. That's good. See, and everybody says I'm the one who's a dick to Bob. No, everybody is a dick to Bob. All right. Last thing I'm going to say. What a missed opportunity. Now, I like symmetry in games, not in maps, but I like symmetry in games. And something that has always bothered me, I've talked about this before, I also think this would fix some of the wonkiness of the leveling problems. There was a really interesting conversation on the Discord the other day, the Patreon Discord, about the Pathfinder 2 playtest, how it was originally 1, 2, 3, 4 for trained, expert, master, legendary. This seemed really interesting to me, and Aaron pointed out something really cool, which was like everything else in the game seems to work on this 1, 2, 3, 4 or 1, 2, 3 system. Like your item bonus is 1, 2, 3, your status bonus is 1, 2, 3, your circumstance bonus is 1, 2, 3, 4, possibly with your legendary. So this idea that like proficiency would follow that same exact scale seems really cool to me, and I really, really like that. And I think that's really awesome. And then it makes the difference between a fighter and a martial 1 point. And 1 point versus 2 points is a very big deal in this game. And it definitely would make someone like a war priest who might end the game at like 2 much different than a thing. So anyways, I thought this was really interesting. But one of the things I talked about in the beginning of the game was I think that if they had added, both for completeness sake and for like mathematical sake, if they had added a 5th tier, right? So you have your trained, you have your expert, you have your math, you have your legendary, and I thought they should add another M, right? Which was the mythic, which was a +10. And I just thought that you could do more with that. You could use that extra tiering to allow some of the marshals to get the legendary right at the end of the game and still have something that the fighter could be at the very end of the game instead of just having this discrepancy. Plus, I just like the symmetry of just going all the way to 10. That felt really nice to me. And nothing cemented this further than the realization last week when I played my 19th level fighter that my 20th level fighter, will have 20 from level, 8 from proficiency, a 7 from a 3 from their item bonus, sorry, and a 7 from their stat, from having a 24 in their stat. And so 20 plus 8 plus 3 plus 7 equals, you guessed it, plus 38. And if they had done a mythic tier, which was 10, then at the end of the game, at level 20, with a +3 weapon and a maxed out strength, the fighter, or the gunslinger, I suppose, could have just had a nice, easy peasy, even +40 to hit. And that would have been, that'd have been beautiful. Instead, you end up with a +38. And that just seems so tilting to me because you're so close and yet you're not there. Yeah, you can get over 40 with people aiding you and casting heroism on you, but just to have the raw natural 40 would have just felt so cool. You're like, yeah, on average with a 10, I get a 50 to hit. And that just feels big and powerful and awesome. And just to have that +40 on your chat. But nope, you get to 38 and that's it. And then the game gives up. Roll, roll for combat says the math was too tight, and boy, don't we know it. The math was definitely too tight. Derek is getting triggered because fighter's more OP. No, I mean, listen, I mean, fighter's gonna fight, and it's fun to be effective and good at what you're doing. So, I mean, I will avoid bringing up how difficult the DCs get at higher levels so as to avoid another Derek rant. Actually, Anthony, oh yeah, train completely useless at higher levels. Also, the game is pretty useless at this other levels, because consider this, my plus, let's. All right, last thing. God damn it. All right, GMG, creature creation, AON guidelines. Okay, let's just pick this real quick, just to show something here real quick. Let's say my fighter is level 20, and let's say that I'm going to be fighting a level 23. That's pretty reasonable, right? Like level 22, level 23 monster. And let's say that they have a high armor class, or somewhere between high and extreme. Hell, we'll make it even, right? We'll make it a nice easy peasy AC 50. All right, that is that's like almost a level. It's like a level 22 extreme armor class. Okay, well, my level 20 fighter with his plus 38 to hit is going to have a heroism on him, and with an aid gets a plus 4. And let's say that the creature has a -1 status penalty, maybe from being frightened. A bunch of us have various demoralize effects and everything like that, and we get him in a flank, or somebody crits him once and now he's prone for all time because we, all drop him because we have weapons. Well, guess what? That's 7, 8, 9. That's 10 points of differential. So effectively, right, 3, 4, and then I'm reducing the creature's armor class. So basically, my attack bonus is, for all intents and purposes, plus 45. And their armor class, for all intents and purposes, is 47. Well, great. I need a 3 to hit. A 3 to hit. Like, what are we doing here? That's nothing. I mean, that's just, that's not even, and that's a creature several levels higher than me that has an extreme AC. I mean, look, I'm not complaining. I think it's great that at high levels you can just basically be like, yeah, we just crit all the time, I mean, yeah, exactly, Blueberry. That's rolling to be polite at that point. Actually, you're rolling to see if I crit or if I don't crit. That's really what it comes down to. And certainly with any character with a flail or pick or anything, like, once you crit, it like starts this chain of events that just utterly destroys the monster. They're on fire, they're prone, they're frightened too. If you get crit by one of my gnome flick maces that I'm playing with in order to prove how stupid they are, and stupidly, both stupid and stupid powerful, you're prone and you're frightened too. And it's like, okay, well, prone condition is way too good, period. And then the fact that hammers and flails inflict it automatically with no check and no size restriction, also busted. So yeah, and we have an inventor who has a maul, and between him getting aided and souping himself up and people flanking with him and maybe getting a true target off or true strike, his obviously his attack bonus isn't as good as mine, the fighter's, but it's 2 points less, right? So once he gets a crit off with his maul, or once I get a crit off with my gnomish flick mace, it kind of feels like the fight is kind of over, more or less. So anyways, I want to say thank you to everybody who donated tonight. We had a really nice night tonight. Really great to see everybody coming out, supporting the show, supporting the channel. Love to see it. And really excited to take the show and the channel in some new directions. I've gotten a lot of positive feedback from everybody. We're really excited to have our Pathfinder 2 AP back. We've got another episode coming up in a week. So next Tuesday, 7 p.m., look for that. And we're going to keep talking about Pathfinder 2. We're going to keep talking about Northern Reaches. We're going to keep running our quest for the Frozen Flames. Pathfinder 2 is, for me, the best version of that crunchy, combat-rich, mechanically complex, deep D20 game. It's probably the best that's ever happened, that's ever been created. Maybe even better, I guess, if I really had to think about it, than my beloved 4th edition, which did have some flaws, mostly in the math. The math didn't work. They had to introduce a lot of fixes to it. Pathfinder 2, after 2.5 years of solid stress testing, it checks out. But there are a lot of other RPGs out there. I want to play them. You want to see them. Let's talk about them. There's a whole world of 5th edition players out there that I'd love to be able to reach and get them thinking about games like not just Pathfinder 2. No, I want them to be thinking about Fate and Dogs in the Vineyard and 7th Sea and Legend of the Five Rings. I want them to know about these games so that they can at least read them or look at them and play them or do something and say, yeah, that's horrible. Or say, I love that. This is everything I ever wanted. Or more likely to say, these are some interesting ideas and concepts. I want to steal, I want to beg, I want to borrow some of these concepts, and I want to bring them into my own game. Will I cover the Thaumaturge, and Psychic? Would love to see your opinion on them. I covered the playtest versions of them already. When they finally release or we get official releases, I'll probably talk about them. Paizo's weird sometimes about me talking about things because unless they give us official permission to talk about it, we can't or we're not supposed to. But at the same time, they also don't give us the kind of early access that they give to other content creators because they don't really like us that much. So yikes. Anyways, 5 tips to make your 5e game better. Proceed to cover Just Talk About Dungeon World. You're going to bump your Patreon to night tier on July 1st. Shadram, that's awesome. Love to hear it. Love to support it. Love to see the support. Patreon is definitely a 100% way, the best way to support us. And these live streams are just a one-way version conversation of what's going on in our Patreon and our Discord all the time. So if you're really interested in talking about games and not just playing them, but also sort of being exposed to new ideas, and also, honestly, if you're interested in playing them, we have community games. We have our Northern Reaches game, which is just Pathfinder 2. So there's a lot of games that are being played as well. So play, talk, conversate, and be part of something that is popping off and growing. We are the largest Pathfinder 2 Patreon on YouTube in terms of numbers and dollars. So, there's a good community there, but there's also a lot of people, and I would encourage you to join our community with the idea of embracing my philosophy, which is entertainment and education. I think role-playing games are fun, but I also think that they're important, and I think that treating them as more than just a passing interest, treating them as something that is a lifestyle, something that you embrace, something that you can use to express yourself creatively and also to explore ideas about yourself, your identity, your sexuality, your hobbies, your interests, your ambitions, your thoughts, your dreams, your hopes, your fears. They are, without a doubt, the single best way to do that. And you can get to do it with your friends and have fun while doing it in a safe space with no risks. And it's the best hobby that ever got to experience. Bros left. Clearly, you've never heard me talk about Monster Hearts. But that's for another game, another time. There are sex moves in that game. Let's just put it that way. So thanks a lot to everybody who came out tonight. Thanks in particular to everybody who tipped and showed their support and all the wonderful things there. Let me find my outro music here. There we go. I want to say thanks to everybody, and we'll see you on Thursday for some all spells ranked. I think we're going to finish up level 6, so it's going to be pretty awesome. If you're a hero for Night's Last Call and you want to maybe be part of that stream, message me and let me know, because I'd like to have a guest on possibly for Thursday. So I think that's everything. See you next time on Night's Last Call.